Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace on Sifted.
GameFace 101.
101? Yeah, hopefully you guys liked episode 100. We had Adam Sessler and Marcus Beer on that special episode. Is this the first time we've done 2 episodes of GameFace in 1 week?
Unless you count like E3.
E3 stuff, yeah. Which we don't really call GameFace. We usually have other names for it. Yeah, so...
last year it was a special, this year it was a GameFace.
Right,
or maybe
that's right.
the other way around.
I don't know. Anyway, this is a big deal for us to have multiple shows in 1 week. Wanted to really kick it into gear with our Patreon out there. For those of you guys who are watching the show for the first time, because we are finally on YouTube, we've been behind a paywall all this time on GameFace, and we're finally coming out behind it for our Patreon. You can see the URL there at the bottom of the screen. We have changed our revenue model from a subscription service to Patreon. So check it out, patreon.com/sifted. Got some fun rewards in there, some crazy rewards in there as well. Some fun goals for some new shows, and a baseline for us to keep producing all the content we are, including this show, Pact or Fact, and all the other stuff that we do. So thank you for any consideration you might have for our Patreon. We would really appreciate it. We have a huge show today, by the way. I know a lot of times on this show we kind of expand a lot on games, but we have like 11 topics today. So we're going to try to get through them a little more quickly than usual so this doesn't go over our allotted 3-hour runtime that we've kind of settled into. But man, all the games are coming out. All the big games are coming out. We've also been kind of away for a while. This is our first show we've done in a while with all of us. Sam is back. He was on vacation for a while, and we were doing shows without camera cuts for a while.
Yeah, I've been in and out of town. And,
yep, Matt's been in and out. It's just late summer. Everyone takes vacation. And
also, if you want to help me out, I've been writing and producing a show on Facebook called Bits and Bytes, which you can go find on Facebook. Just look for Bits and Bytes, and if you like it, and share it, and maybe we'll get to do more episodes. It's basically just game stuff.
Yep, fun game stuff.
Yeah, like a lot of retro stuff. Like basically, I'm writing just what interests me.
Which means it's probably pretty good, folks.
I'm not gonna raise expectations too high.
You'll let everybody else be the judge.
But if you like fish puns, episode 1 is right there, man. Like you're
right in the wheelhouse.
Right there.
All right, let's get going. We got a lot to get through today. We want to get started right away. First game we're going to talk about is Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I have a little anecdote to share before we start talking about the game. It's been tough for me to play games the last couple weeks because I've been working on this Patreon and pretty much everything has gone into it. I did kind of put away some time to play this game, and people who are just watching GameFace for the first time probably have no idea that I've had horrible luck with my Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
I
think you got a lemon.
I think I have a defective unit at this point. My left Joy-Con, everyone had left Joy-Con problems. Mine has never gone away. You even sent me a new one.
I've never had left Joy-Con, but to be fair, probably 90% of my time playing the Switch has been with the Pro Controller.
Yeah, that helps. So my Switch had sat in my entertainment center for the last month and a half, probably untouched, unplugged, not powered up, nothing.
I will also say this because I was getting bending on my Switch in the
Really?
dock. So months and months ago, I put it in the case that came with the Zelda Special Edition and left it in there. And I took it out to play Rabbids, Mario and Rabbids last week. Probably the first time I turned it on in 4 or 5 months.
Whoa.
Still fully powered up.
Still fully charged. Holds its juice.
It holds its charge like you wouldn't believe. Like it is ready to go. The Joy-Cons were dead, but they charge on the side of the thing, so it's fun. But I was pretty impressed by that. I was pretty impressed that you can leave it in this case for that long and it's still ready to go.
Mine was not charged. So I hook everything up, plug it into the wall. It's pretty much completely dead. And it should have been charged. So maybe I've had mine out unplugged longer than yours has. The problem is once I charged it up, the right Joy-Con doesn't exist anymore. The system cannot pick it up. When you look at the schematic on the system, it shows like the icons of the Joy-Con. The right Joy-Con is just completely missing.
And here it is.
So I brought it in to give to Matt today. He's going to take it home and plug it into his Switch.
And hope it doesn't infect mine.
Right. And I'm hoping that it's just the right Joy-Con that's gone bad and not my actual tablet.
So would it not even work if you had it locked on?
Nothing. It just doesn't even register. Right. It's like it's not there. I can't really start the system because you have to hit 3 buttons to start. Like it's just dead. So I half almost want it to be completely dead, because I feel like you said that the system is defective, and I would actually prefer...
You have so many problems with it.
I have, and I would just prefer for Nintendo to just replace the whole thing at this point instead of just giving me a Joy-Con, but, you know, we'll see. So anyway, I have not had the chance to play Mario plus Rabbids. Matt, you have had a chance to play it.
Yeah.
I will admit I've watched a lot of it being played, but I have not had the chance to play it myself. So what are your thoughts, Matt? It's hovering around 8 on Metacritic.
Yeah. That feels about right to me. It's good. It's it is XCOM. People call it XCOM for babies a little bit, and it's a little bit there.
That seems accurate.
I think closing in on the end of the second world, which is like the desert/ice area, and like it's starting to throw some new wrinkles more, as opposed to like the first world is kind of like slowly introducing concepts for most of it. Although the boss battle, not afraid to kill your guys. The bosses are pretty tough. And at least by the standards of the game, like it's kind of this element of like you can kind of sleepwalk through the normal battles, and once you hit like a mid boss, you better be ready to actually start thinking about what you can do.
Yeah.
And I like that. I mean, I'm not going to hold kind of the training wheels aspect of the game, of the strategy of the game, against it because of the nature of the characters it's using. I mean, you have to have that there.
Look, the game is, I would not say it's made for kids, but it is intended that kids can play it.
Right, and you can. I mean, like when battles start, there's always a little thing pops up. It says easy mode, and like you can hit with a Y button, and it'll like switch it to an easier mode. I haven't done that, so I don't know what that does.
Right.
But like it's clearly there to be played, and whatever your skill level. I've been sticking to normal, and I feel like it's a decent level of challenge as you move into World 2, and like there's enough different abilities and different moves, and like especially the jumping off each character, like to add mobility and stuff. I feel there's a lot of versatility in what you can do, and it feels a little more open and movement based than a lot of these strategy RPGs tend to be. So I'm really liking it. And,
no permadeath, right?
No, not that I've noticed.
They decided to take that out of the formula.
No.
Imagine if a 5-year-old lost Luigi or whatever, and he's like, "Mommy!"
Yeah, the only thing like that, because the worlds are divided up into standard Mario World 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3.
Yeah.
And damage to your character carries over from battle to battle in a World 1. Like World 1, 3, there's like 2 battles, and like any damage you suffer in the first battle will still be there in the second battle.
And what happens if the character dies?
I don't actually know.
Because no one's ever died.
Mario got knocked out in one of the boss battles, but after that everybody came back and it was fine. So, but I don't know what happens if somebody gets knocked out while you're progressing through a stage. I think you can replace him with another character if you have more characters in your roster.
Okay.
Because I have a Luigi now that I can rotate in if I need to, but I haven't really used him much because his hit points are real low compared to everybody else.
So you must dole out a lot of damage, I'm assuming.
Yeah, he seems to be like a control support character more than anything else. But I've never been a huge control support person. I'm more firepower. So Mario and the Princess Peach Rabbid kind of fit my style a little better.
How are the roles? Are they varied enough that you can form a lot of varied strategies?
I mean, I think so. It's not like you're not talking about XCOM 2 level stuff, but you are talking about like each character has their own role, and if you're trying to use like Luigi Rabbid the way you use Mario Rabbids, you're not going to come out too well.
But is it a trial? I guess my question really is it a trial and error game? Is there kind of one way to get through each skirmish where you have to use the sniper, or you have to use the tank?
Not so far.
Okay.
I mean, there's clearly easier ways to do each thing. Like there's, it's pretty easy if you've played these games before, especially if you played a lot of Fire Emblem. You kind of know, okay, like this is what they want me to do here, and this is what they're hinting I should do. But I haven't hit a point where, like, if I don't follow kind of like what the level implies I'm supposed to do, that I just fail at it. Like
okay.
it lets you kind of improvise as you need. And like there's like early on in World 1, there's stuff where they teach you that like if you're higher up on a higher level, you do extra damage when you're shooting down at something. But I did a lot of that. The second one of those, I did a lot of it on the ground, and I didn't feel at a disadvantage. I mean, I was at a disadvantage because I could have been up high, but I didn't feel like I was up against the wall for it. But I mean, that might get worse. It might get more challenging as you move through the game, though, because I feel like there's enough versatility in the moves they learned so far that like, I could see them getting because like how Mario games kind of have that thing where it's like early on it's all fun and games,
right?
But then later on it becomes tough as nails if you really want to master it. And then of course there is a rating system after each if you I think it's everybody has to survive, and you have to take under a certain number of turns to get a perfect rating.
Because you get scored at the end.
Yeah, you get scored at the end of each battle, and then at the end of each world, your score tallies up, and you get coins basically to in exchange for your performance, and then you use the coins to upgrade the weapons and buy new things.
How deep do the upgrades go?
Pretty far. So you've got like 3 skill trees per character, I think, and then you've got like a bunch of different weaponry, and you can upgrade the weaponry, and like there's
like attachments or
at least with cosmetic stuff. I'm not sure, but you can or can you? Maybe I'm not that far, but there is a ton of different guns for each character, and each gun tends to have a different kind of strength or role. There's some of them like the bee-themed ones are more likely to cause honey, which sticks a character in place for a turn. There's ones that are more likely to cause like stun or dizziness or whatever. So, and then there's different things you can do to prevent that from happening. And like different characters have abilities that like I think it's Rabbids Luigi has an ability that prevents him. That for one turn, I think he can't be status affected.
Okay.
But that takes like 3 turns to recharge after you use it, so you have to kind of predict when they're going to try to do that to you.
The game sounds crazy deep. I'm like really surprised.
It's not kidding around in that. I mean, it's not like baby's first tactical RPG. Once you get past the tutorial stuff, there's thought you're going to have to put into it, and I like that. I feel like they made a real game in this genre. They didn't make it like some kind of half-assed like facsimile. I think they did it up right. And then like right here, you're looking at like kind of the between battle like sort of overworld thing where you have to run around and solve like some switch puzzles. And
it's very Mario-esque. Like, I guess you had to collect like the red coins. And
and so there's a lot to do, and it's not the same thing over and over again. Really.
And you can free roam through this area too.
It's
not like you're on a track.
Find treasures. That's how you find new weaponry and like little like data log entries for things. And one thing that I am very impressed, I don't know if impressed by, but just surprised by, I guess, is how much freedom Nintendo gave Ubisoft in this game to mess around with the Nintendo stuff, because there's some edgy shit in this game by Nintendo. Like they say hell a lot on things. Like, there's a couple, and there's a couple of like little risque moments especially with the Peach Rabbid. And like
I saw one cutscene where one of the enemies basically wipes his ass with Donkey Kong.
Yeah, like it's like I'm a little. I mean, it's not Conquer level like shocking, but like it's. I'm a little surprised that Nintendo was willing to go to some of the places that this game goes. But
I mean, the other
but
thing
it's not. I mean, I'm not criticizing for that. I think it's
great.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, the one thing I would say too is that I feel like the folks at Ubisoft that made this game, they love Mario.
Yeah.
You can see it in the game, and they know it very, very well. And I'm sure Nintendo had a lot of guidance on this game. Mm-hmm. It's also surprising to me...
the in-jokes in this are just fast and furious, to the point that I think I'm missing a bunch of them because I'm not that
much Mario
fan. Yeah. But there's a lot of stuff going on in here. And the other thing is, like, while it is not, probably going to win... best graphics of the year from a technical standpoint, it's really pretty.
It is. It's gorgeous.
For what it is, like, it is rock solid. I have not seen a polygon out of place. Everything feels concrete and real and there and
really
sharp.
Polished game. Yeah.
And like, there's no draw-in problems. I mean, it's just a really pretty game. It just takes its art style and does it up as well as it possibly could.
The one thing I've been seeing a lot on social media is apparently there are like challenge stages or something that are like hard as nails.
Yeah.
How do those work?
I haven't played any of those.
Oh, okay. But I've seen a lot of people talk about how they can't even get through some of them. So there's definitely some levels in the game that are going to test you.
Yeah, well, it's like it's like any Mario game where it's like if you want the hard line like crazy challenge, it's going to be there for you, but it's going to be optional.
Yeah.
Kids can get through this just playing the main game, I think, but they are very aware that there is a contingent that loves their turn-based strategy hard as nails, and that seems to be there for you. I am not really one who loves this turn-based strategy as hard. Like Fire Emblem on like Classic is about as far as I go.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty nice level of challenge to me.
Well, strategy games like this can be brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of one-hit kills and things like that.
And there's also a lot of like environmental stuff to keep track of. Like right here you can see like the brick stuff you can destroy with a few shots, even if they're in cover. So you cover again. Brick cover is not permanent. The kind of steel cover is, but then some of the cover is explosive if you shoot it, and then sometimes explosive cover is hiding under other kinds of cover, so you don't know until you shoot it that it's actually explosive cover.
That I don't know if I care for too much.
Well, because so far it's been you hit it and like the cover blows away and then you see it's explosive.
Okay, I'm fine.
So it's not like all of a sudden it's explosive,
gotcha.
but it's like if you happen to take a shot at this, and the thing is like there's no reason not to take a shot at a guy if you have no other shot. Just shoot at his cover and see what you can do.
Never know. Yeah.
And sometimes it turns like, oh hey, look at that.
Yeah.
So and and there's a lot of using it. Those pipes aren't just adventure area stuff. Like there's pipes like that in the battles, and you can use them to get behind people. And like I pulled some stuff that's pretty. I was pretty happy with myself for figuring out. And I've done some stuff that I was just like, that was the dumbest thing I could possibly have done there, because I just didn't understand how sort of all the different level design was fitting together.
But that happens in every game, every franchise. XCOM is like that too. I mean. It's kind of part and parcel with this genre.
Yeah, but I do think it's less frustrating than a lot of other games in its genre. It is a very playable game.
It's a nerfed turn-based strategy game.
A little bit, but like it's there to play for real if you want it to be. So I would say unless you're like just dead set, I will never play a turn-based strategy game, period, ever. Like, don't let that scare you off if you're a fan of Mario or Rabbids. Like, I feel like most people wouldn't let them scare you off.
Yeah.
But it's.
Well, I think a lot of people don't like Rabbids.
True, and there is a lot of Rabbids. And
I would agree with some of those people. I'm not a huge fan of the Rabbids property.
Neither am I, but I mean, you are shooting them.
Yeah.
So, like,
good point.
And they are. I mean, when they do that D-Res thing, they're actually going back to the Princess Peach's castle, because you're like, they've gone crazy because of the merge with the Mushroom Kingdom. So you're basically freeing them from their madness, relative madness. Yeah. And then they go back to Princess Peach's castle and build things for you.
Oh, so, like what?
Like basically, they build the little stations where you like, use amiibos, or there's a buddy co-op campaign you can do, where you go in where you can play with another player, and like basically you play different maps in each world, like complete each world, and I think it unlocks a co-op campaign challenge for that world.
Got ya.
And stuff like that. It's
any online play in this at all?
I don't think so.
No, so no head-to-head battles or anything like that.
Not so far.
Okay.
If there are head-to-head battles, it looks like it's probably
local
local co-op.
So here's the big question. We're kind of in a software drought for Switch right now. Lots of indie stuff coming out, obviously, but no major releases. This is kind of a gap filler waiting for Super Mario Odyssey. Should people pick this up?
I think so.
Yeah?
I would. I mean, it's the second Switch game I've ever bought, and I don't regret it.
Yeah.
I think it was worth the full price. It gives you a lot of game. It looks great. It's fun. It's a new take on Mario. The Rabbids aren't too don't annoy me too much, and
I think for Nintendo fans too, this is something different.
Yeah, and it's done with charm and love, and it's a different take on some stuff. I think it's nice. I think it's cool, and if you have other stuff to play, sure, I can see this not taking huge priority. But if you're a Switch owner that doesn't have anything else to play or waiting for Mario Odyssey, like you could do a lot worse than to try this one out. And it's probably going to last you that long, too. There's a lot if you want to complete everything in this game.
I thought I had read that it wasn't all that long.
The campaign's not that long, but I think the challenges will last you a while.
Yeah, if you really get into it.
Yeah, if you want to drain every drop of life out of it.
Which, let's be honest, Nintendo fans, they do that.
Yeah.
I mean, back when I used to have a lot of spare time, I would play Nintendo games to 100%, because a lot of times you end up discovering the real depth of its games and the best parts of its games when you start digging into the more difficult parts of it. So, I'm going to play this when I get my freaking Switch fixed. I'm probably just going to have to buy a Pro Controller at this point, because obviously the Joy-Cons are cursed.
I mean, I don't really have anything negative to say about this game that I wouldn't say about any other turn-based game.
Wow.
So I think they did a good job.
That's great. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about something, and this is a case of us not having a show for a while where we could talk about this. It's kind of an old story, but it's a big story that I wanted to bring onto the show, and that is Mark Laidlaw, who was a writer for Valve for years and years, left the company, and upon his departure, essentially released the script for Half-Life 2 Episode 3.
Little story treatment, basically.
Right. But it was basically what was going to happen in the game. I think or
at least what was going to happen when he was working on it, whatever the hell that was.
And if anyone is even working on it at all,
well, it was interesting that there was an element that someone asked him to clarify, and he wouldn't do it because he said Valve may want to go into that later in something.
Well, I think the first thing that struck me when this story hit was that it's dead.
Yeah.
Because and he knows it. And I don't think he would have released this unless he knew that this game was never coming to fruition.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, this version of it is dead.
Yeah.
And they'd have to start all over, and it doesn't look like Valve is interested in doing that. Ever, maybe.
ever. Yeah.
I mean, I certainly took this as, well, that's the end of Half-Life.
Yeah. It really sucks. But you know what? At the same time, I feel like...
Turns out Half-Life's Half-Life was about 4 years. Who knew?
That's true. It's bittersweet, I think, because I feel bad for fans, and I'm one, who wanted this saga to come to an end and to get...
And it sounded pretty good. Like, his story breakdown was like, that sounded pretty great to me.
Totally would have been fine with that game, 1,000,000%. I mean, obviously, there's some big stuff that happens in there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not going to spoil any of that here, because some people may have just stayed away from the story. But I think
just in case magic happens and they make it.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
It's bittersweet because
they're not using that now.
Yeah.
If Half-Life 2 Episode 3 ever comes out, it'll be a totally different game.
It will be. Yeah. Because obviously they're not going to use what he released. But it's bittersweet because it's been torture all this time, like wondering, waiting, people begging Gabe for information on it, and him awkwardly denying it, and never really saying like it was dead or it was alive.
Even just a couple years ago, there was that cutaway to him in like one of those presentations where it was just him like hammering a crowbar on an anvil, saying these things take time.
Yeah,
it's like
he's continued to kind of propagate it a little bit.
Yeah,
and I think finally we have some closure. Like, one, we know what would have happened if they actually had made the game, and two, we know that it's not coming. And I think now finally maybe fans can move on. I mean, it's still a big story because we can look back through our data on Sifted, and we can see any little rumor or anything that popped up for this game just did huge numbers. And so it's not like people I think maybe the demand for it has just increased over time. And so, I do feel bad for all of us that we're probably never getting the game, but I'm also glad that it's kind of been put to rest finally.
Yeah, I mean, the main question I have is like, why is this the way it happened? It's like what in the world?
It makes no sense. It's
so
a license
strange.
to print money.
So strange.
It is. But thank you, Mark, for sharing that with us. I wonder too how angry maybe some folks at Valve are over this.
I'm sure they cry themselves to sleep on huge
pillows of money. Yeah. Like, or maybe they're happy. Maybe they're like, wow, we're finally off the hook on this. They're going to ask questions for a little while about the script, the treatment. But I think once people get their answers on that, they'll probably just leave.
Now, the one thing he wouldn't elaborate on was the idea that Alex was in the employ of the G-Man.
Right.
And someone asked for more details on that. And he said, well, that's a thing that Valve might want to explore in a future project, and so I can't talk about it. So it sounds like even he thinks that Half-Life in some form maybe exists some down the road, but like, I still feel like if we see any more from that universe, it's going to be either in the form of Portal things, which may not even matter because the people who wrote that are gone.
Right.
And
all their writers are gone pretty much. It's been an exodus over the last couple of years. It would end up being
something like it'd be like a VR demo or something like that. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't. I don't know if we're going to see any full-fledged single-player games out of Valve ever again.
But here's the thing. I think if Valve were going to do some kind of a VR take on Half-Life, that it would have at least talked about it by now. Because it went all in on Vive and was kind of co-marketing Vive and didn't really supply much for it. If it really cared about VR becoming a success, I feel like it would have already announced something along those lines.
Yeah, that's a gun to pull out earlier than they have.
Yeah. And, now that HTC is looking at selling Vive and everything's starting to get a little murky, I don't know. I think the final chapter of this franchise may have been written. Other than, you're right, maybe some kind of goofy shooting gallery set in the Half-Life universe for VR or something like that.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
But as far as another full-fledged, narrative-driven shooter set in that universe, I just don't see it happening. So, as the graphic says, good night, sweet prince.
Yeah, which is, it's doubly disappointing considering, we're sort of in this era of long-awaited games coming true.
Yeah.
And this was...
No, you're right. We got Shenmue 3 coming, and we got the Banjo guys to make a new platformer.
Yeah, and in the end, I think I'd trade Yooka-Laylee for this about 3 times over. So,
in hindsight, which is always 20/20, without a doubt. So, yeah, I mean, Valve at this point is just happy stacking cash.
Yeah, I mean, they're a retailer now.
Yeah, they are not really game developers anymore, other than maybe some small projects here and there. Left 4 Dead? I wouldn't mind getting another Left 4 Dead. Another Portal would have been cool.
Maybe they'll get a Left 4 Dead themed series of hats in Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, or at the very least, just sell off the IP.
Yeah, let somebody else.
Let somebody else make it that you trust. Let Naughty Dog make Half-Life 2. Imagine that.
Yeah,
that would be incredible.
that'd be cool.
I mean, you would think Valve could find some studios that it would trust, obviously with its oversight involved, at least a little bit. Could find some studios that could make a great Half-Life game. And then, it could do what it loves to do, sit back and stack cash for doing nothing.
Yep.
It's right in Valve's MO. So we'll see. But I think at this point, it's pretty safe to say the Half-Life saga has come to a close. So, all right, next we're going to talk about something a little crazy. So there's this game, Matt, called Fight of Gods. And it's a fighting game where literally it's gods fighting each other.
I've heard of this before, I think.
It's been on Sifted for a while. There's like 6 or 7 trailers that have been curated to the site for it. It is literally just a fighting game about gods, which is kind of like Superman in DC movies. It's like, who can beat him?
Right.
So what happens when you have all the characters that can't beat each other? Like, they can never die. It's really bizarre.
I mean, they've done stuff like that. There's War Gods on the N64, which is kind of the same thing in a way.
I guess.
It didn't use like mainstream religions.
Right, it didn't use like the real
mythological
gods.
characters.
Yeah. Well, you kind of ruined the punchline here a little bit, Sam. We hadn't quite given it up, but people probably know about this anyway. So it was announced this week that the game includes Jesus.
He's back and he's cross.
Yeah.
That's literally what the trailer said.
I know.
So,
how do you feel about this, Matt? I mean, you're not a Christian.
No, I think it's funny. And like, it reminds me of like there's an image that has floated around the internet forever with this giant like ripped like muscular Jesus like cracking the cross in half like while he's up on it, and it's just like supposed to be one of those like Jesus power like youth group things, I think, and I'm just like it's fun, it's what it's kind of putting everything. I know I've seen people like putting Jesus on the same level as like Buddha. I'm like, yeah, Buddha's a real religion too, I mean, it's just like there's no, I don't see any, and Moses is in there. It's like that's cool.
Was Moses a god though?
No, neither's Buddha. He's just really enlightened.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's a whole theological argument about whether Jesus was or not.
Right. Yeah.
He is, but he isn't. But he also is all three. But he's also the 3 are one. And
every kind of religion that even recognizes
people went to war over that shit.
Yeah,
You're not going to figure it out in an shitty indie fighting game. Like, it's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, you also have different religions that. All the religions that recognize Jesus as real all have a different take on who he was and what he did, and there's really no clear definitive.
Yeah, but it's like, look, if they didn't put Jesus in there, like, we wouldn't be talking about this game.
No, we wouldn't.
It was a pretty brilliant PR move.
Well, here's the other part. Jesus is back. I mean, they really just...
I really like that he's still got the pieces of lumber on his arm. Like, I think
from the cross.
That's a fun... That's a fun way to take it.
One of the quotes in the Accolades trailer
says... This game looks so bad.
It does.
Like, it really looks terrible.
One of the quotes says, where it says right there, they said it was crappy. Just without ignorance. I mean, they're cast the first combo. That's so great. They pull a quote from an article where it says, "Holy shit, this is awesome." And just the hilarity. Jesus is God tier.
Yeah.
There it was. Holy shit, it's incredible.
Someone's going to hell.
It better be at Evo. So one thing I will say is they have realized that they've sparked some controversy here, because today it was announced that Malaysia has banned Steam because of this game. It has banned Steam, not the game, the entire service that you can purchase the game on. Banned in an entire country because of this.
That's one way to... I believe that's called throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
You're absolutely right. And the developers behind this get it. They're figuring out it's this controversial thing, because today... And what we just saw, that B-roll that we used there, was 2 trailers put together. The Jesus trailer, and then the one
with... reaction
then
trailer,
the reaction... the reaction trailer. And we cut it all together into one piece of B-roll. And that the reaction thing came out today.
Yeah.
As soon as that Malaysia story broke about Steam.
Well, you got to strike when it's hot.
Yeah.
I mean, they know that this is probably blown up beyond their wildest dreams, I would think.
There's so many puns that you just said strike while the iron's hot. Like, there's so many ways you can tie all these things that we're saying into the actual game and Jesus. So So much for separation of church and state in Malaysia, right?
Yeah, well. I mean, there's probably places you could get stoned for playing this. So.
You're probably right, yeah. Do you anticipate this becoming a topic here in the States? Because, look, the Jesus trailer came out. People on Sifted loved it, and it got a lot of one-ups and blah, blah, blah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't...
But no one seemed offended by it or anything.
No, I don't think most people are going to be that uptight about this, especially because, like, you know, like there was some people kind of complaining about how Far Cry 5 maybe is showing religious people. I mean, but, you know, that was a misnomer, but it's like religious people are crazy or they're trying to come. This shows Jesus is kind of badass.
Yeah,
like,
it does.
I guess there's like, unless you think it's disrespectful to include him at all.
Right. Which for some people it may be.
Well, it may be, but I think, you know, I know a lot of like people I grew up with who are hardline Christian people, and a couple of them I even saw, they think this is awesome. Like they think of, you know, Jesus as their warrior in life, along, you know, put on your armor of God and do all that stuff, and this is, you know, and they don't. They've actually talked about playing it and, like, you know, winning matches against the gods they don't believe in. Take that, Osiris, you know?
I guess for some religious people... Because if
there's something that hasn't been beat down enough, it's ancient Egypt, right?
Yeah. I guess for some religious people, it could be kind of cathartic to play it, right?
Yeah,
Beating up Buddha with Jesus, and it's really crazy.
I mean, it's also, like, I might have a soft spot anyway, just because, like, I sort of miss the days of, like, the shitty fighting games, like the shitty.
They kind of went away with the N64 era,
but that used to be like a thing. You know, if you were going to make like a crappy one-off, cheap ass, like let's just cash it in as fast as we can game, it used to be fighting games. Like, that was what you made.
Yeah,
even Naughty Dog did that.
Yeah, you're right. Day. I mean, I guess probably it died in the PS2, GameCube, Xbox era. Yeah, that was kind of the last generation where you had these crappy fighting games that were
for the new century. It's like we all agreed we weren't going to do that anymore.
Yeah. A private agreement, but they're brave, but I think it's all driven by revenue and money. So, are they really all that brave? They're just trying to make cash.
Brave/foolhardy people would put Muhammad in it.
Yeah, you're right. Note they did not go that far.
No, they're not willing to risk life and limb, I guess, in the Charlie Hebdo situation for a shitty indie game.
I didn't even think about that, actually. You're right. Muhammad's not in there.
No.
Well, what if that's the DLC that's coming?
Well, that's like, you know, there is no rule in Christianity, as far as I have ever known, of depicting Jesus visually.
Right.
And that is a thing in Islam. So that would probably be, by definition, offensive. I think the question of putting Jesus in this is offensive to Christians as a matter of opinion, whereas putting Muhammad in would be a matter of fact.
Doctrine.
A doctrine related, like, you are, as a Muslim, you are supposed to believe that is offensive.
But as we all know, it appears that that Islam in general is open to translation in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously we have
not everyone would be offended by it,
right?
Clearly. But
there are some moderate Muslims.
Oh yeah, millions and millions. But like, and most of them probably wouldn't even care. It's like, who cares?
The problem is the ones that do care.
Ones that do care could be an issue.
Really,
it's just like
really
there's
dangerous.
a very big reaction difference there.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of use that kind of little gotcha thing. It's like, well, when's Muhammad coming? And it's just like, well, because it's not probably worth that.
No, it's definitely not worth it.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It's not going to...
I don't say that it's like a criticism of one religion over another. It's just like that's the reality of the world we're in right now and the things that other people have had to deal with, and I don't blame them for looking at that and saying we don't want to be part of that. Yep, I agree. So I think the game's only like $15 on Steam. I mean, it's going to come and go like that, and it's not going to... Who cares? Like, I'm never going to play it. I mean, as much as I enjoy that trailer, I'm not going to pay money for that. So. What are the odds you think it'll appear on Fox News? Better than average? Yeah. I mean, give it time. Yeah. I'll tell you what they should do is... I'm surprised it hasn't been on there already. Is as the hype or the joke dies down as the year goes on, they should put Christmas DLC out. With Santa Claus? No, like you should just like like I don't know. You could have a nativity scenes. I like how the trailer says or something, spread the message of peace. Right, and then it shows him beating people up. Well, once everybody else is beaten into submission, it's peaceful, right? You can't hear anything. They're not bugging him anymore. Yep. It's all in your perspective. Or like some Hanukkah DLC for Moses or something. Yeah, just to that doesn't even make any sense because I think he predates that in the biblical timeline. But just to really tweak it. I think you get back in the headlines if you do something just audacious enough in that respect. Yeah, they're treading on
thin ice, I think, though.
What do they got to lose, really?
Yeah, exactly. They were going to sell no copies of this
Right.
game until this, so they've already made a masterful... At the very least, what's going to happen with this game is all the YouTubers are going to buy it.
Yeah,
and play
it's like, I mean, they even saying that the kusoge thing, which is, you know, Japanese for shitty game.
Yeah.
You know, the intention, you know, it's like watching a bad movie on purpose. It's
Right.
like, you know, YouTubers gonna buy this up and play it and laugh at it and make fun of it and mod it and do things, and then Jim Sterling's gonna act like it's a problem that it exists, and that's gonna be the end of it, you know.
And the cycle will be complete.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about a franchise that's been away for a long time. No More Heroes. Suda51 talked about No More Heroes at the unveiling of the Switch in Japan. Cryptically, I might add. He didn't really say much about it at PAX this past weekend. It was unveiled in full. For now, a Nintendo Switch exclusive. It came out this week that it's not 100% going to stay a Switch exclusive necessarily forever.
Well, they want to make money somehow. So.
Yeah.
If it can run on the Switch, it can run on anything. So
Yeah. What's your opinion of the No More Heroes franchise, Matt?
I love the first game, and I was not particularly impressed by the second.
Yeah.
I love the first game a lot. Like I gave it a 5 out of 5 in the review on XPlay, and I've played it probably 3 times straight all the way through. I have never finished No More Heroes 2.
Yeah.
I
hardly even played the second one.
I find 2 to be weirdly nasty and kind of like...
It wasn't really tongue-in-cheek anymore.
No, it felt like, you know, like it felt misogynistic a little and cruel in a way that it wasn't winking at itself anymore.
No.
That's just how it was. And the first game kind of played it all as like a we know we're terrible sort of inside joke. And 2 didn't feel like it was playing that joke anymore. And also
it was too serious,
yeah.
I thought.
Well, and also I just didn't feel like it was... I didn't think it was fun. Like, the gameplay parts weren't fun to me, and the bosses weren't as interesting outside of the one, like, superhero guy who merged into the giant robot near the beginning.
Yeah.
But, no, I just didn't... 2 didn't have that same tone and that same click that the first one did. So I'm tentatively looking forward to this. I'm a little disappointed that Robin Atkin Downs is not Travis again.
Yeah.
I mean, although, you know, people are tweeting about it, so maybe that'll get fixed, but, like... Travis's performance from him was you know, kind of key to the character, and I don't know if you're going to find someone who matched that. The other thing I find interesting is that he said that this is not 3.
Really?
He said this is more of a... He's like, he didn't want to call it a spin-off, but it's like a side story. And he's like, if this is successful, maybe I'll make No More Heroes 3. Like, this is not 3 to him.
Interesting. I didn't read that. But the one thing I would say is I wouldn't say I loved the first game.
The first game is heavily flawed. I just love it.
I think it's the perfect case of style over substance. I think, and I like it. Like, I'm a fan of Killer 7. I like games like that just kind of throw all the gameplay stuff kind of to the side and just concentrate on story and characters and kind of putting the player in uncomfortable positions. But the gameplay in this series has not been great. Mm-mm. And as a gameplay first kind of player, that's kind of one angle where I've been disappointed in the past. But and I'd agree with you in the second game. The first game was worth playing for the characters and the story alone, and just how over the top it was, particularly for a game that was releasing on Nintendo consoles. Mm-hmm. There was kind of that whole run there on the Wii where you get these crazy over the top games that didn't really match the audience of Nintendo consoles, typically Nintendo's audience anyway. I went back and looked at the sales numbers for the first 2 games, and they are abysmal.
Yeah.
I mean, abysmal.
It's a little shocking that they're doing another one. Really.
Yeah, particularly on Nintendo platforms, because I think that's what held back the first 2 games. I mean, I think total between the first 2 games, they sold like 300,000 copies. Mm-hmm. Total between both. And the first one was like 200 and some. The second one didn't even sell like 100K.
The second one didn't move the needle at all.
No, it just came and went.
And I also will say that they did a PS3 version of the first one that I think is way better because you don't have to do the waggle
right,
stuff.
Right.
And it looks better. But I mean, I'll keep my eye on this one. I just don't know. I don't know if there's anything in the tank. You know, like I think it may have been a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
And certainly games of a similar ilk have not. Interesting, you know, like Lollipop Chainsaw, I kind of hoped would be sort of a spiritual successor, and I found that game to be just stone dead boring.
It was,
so,
yeah.
Like maybe this was like one off, and that's all you get.
Matt, do you think Suda51 might be a little overrated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
a tad.
Yeah.
I like him.
I think certain players
I generally like his stuff, and I like him personally. He's a cool dude in person. But I feel like it's always high concept and low execution.
That's the perfect way to describe it
in a lot of places. And if you can get past that low execution, the high concept will carry you to glory. But if you can't, then there's not going to be a whole lot to latch on to.
I can understand why there are some people that love his games. Because some people put a bigger emphasis on story and characters and things in narrative and things like that than they do on the gameplay. But I think for the average consumer, his games can be a tough sell, and a lot of people might be better served just watching sort of No More Heroes, the movie on YouTube, where they just stitch together all the cutscenes from the games, and you just watch them as if it's a movie. Because the actual parts where you play his games are typically not that great.
No, it's usually the payoff that makes it worth it.
Yeah, I always found myself kind of suffering through the gameplay to get to the next cutscene.
Yeah. Or at least to see what the next boss fight was.
Right.
And which these games are, mostly boss fights.
Because he is great at that, man. He's great at creating characters, compelling characters, characters with a lot of depth and multi-layered.
He's great at satire and usually great at,
And inside jokes, he's good at that kind of stuff. But when it comes down, and maybe that's not his fault. Maybe it's just Grasshopper. Maybe Grasshopper just doesn't have the staff or the chops to create games that are compelling to actually play.
And sometimes you run into a thing where like the open world of the first game is a lot of people complain about how it was it fell into the same traps of mediocre open worlds everywhere, but it's hard to tell if it did that intentionally or not.
Right.
It's as kind of like a commentary on that. But then even if you're making a commentary on that, it doesn't make it any more fun to play.
No.
Which is sort of the barrier between doing something like that in a narrative medium and doing that in an interactive medium, where it's if you did that in a movie, I would get the meta joke and it would be funny to me, but if you're going to make me play 17 hours of it, that's a very different beast.
And then you start to wonder if Suda is just using those jokes and those kind of nudges, winks, and nods as camouflage to say, hey, my team at Grasshopper, they're not so good at creating the gameplay part of games, but we're really good at this other part of it. So if we make fun of the other part and make it seem like we're self-aware that that's sort of a deficiency in the game, maybe people will start to think what you said is maybe it's a commentary or something like that.
I think No More Heroes 2 is a decent bit of evidence toward that, in that once you remove that sort of knowing, wink towards that, it becomes a lot more tedious to play.
Yeah, I felt a little dirty playing the second game.
Yeah, same.
And there aren't a lot of video games that made me feel that way.
it just felt gross.
Manhunt was one of them.
Yeah, Manhunt would be one of those as well.
There are some. What was that military shooter that was just over-the-top gory? It's legendary.
Soldier of Fortune?
Yeah.
Where you
where it was just the worst gore.
Kingpin?
That was another game that made me feel uneasy playing it.
Kingpin was like that too, if you've ever played that.
But that's the problem. It's when you have a game that's all gore and has no art to it. It's just icky.
Fun fact, the review of Kingpin on extended play, or I guess it would have been GameSpot TV at the time, aired I think the day or the week after Columbine.
Oh, really?
And they didn't realize what was in there. And
it
went to air.
Oh my gosh! Did you get backlash for that?
I didn't work there yet.
Oh, okay.
I've just
heard,
before
both our time.
Yeah, I've just heard that story.
Oh wow!
And Adam will tell you the story of suddenly realizing, oh my god,
that's
in the next episode. We got to move. And so I think they caught it after one airing or something.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe caught it, but it was or maybe they caught it before it aired. But that was suddenly that was a thing people had to think about.
Oh yeah.
But I remember Kingpin being one of the earliest ones, because I didn't play it until a few years ago, because I think Adam actually told that story in a panel at PAX or something, and somebody came up after and said, because I said I'd never played it, and somebody said, oh, that's on Steam now for $2. And I went home and I bought it and I played it. I'm like, yeah, it's gross for the time, definitely.
When games step over the line. All right, let's move along. We're going to talk next about a game I have been playing, a game that I have actually had some time to play and finish the first episode anyway.
Yeah, well, that's good, because I haven't played this at all. So.
Perfect. Life is Strange Before the Storm. It's a prequel to Life is Strange. Matt, were you a big fan of Life is Strange, the first game?
I liked it a lot. I think I gave it best adventure game or best something that year.
Yeah, I think we both did, actually, if I remember correctly.
It was really good.
Yeah, we're both fans of the first one then. Mm-hmm. Second one is a prequel. It follows Chloe, but she's younger. She's preteen,
It's like
appears
a couple
to be-
years earlier.
Yeah, it's not like she's a child or anything like that. She's just starting to figure
But
out.
she's sort of, because in the original game, Max comments on how different she is, and this game kind of explains how she became different.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, when you meet her in the first Life is Strange, she's more of a rebel, sort of rock and roll girl with, like, smoking in her bedroom and doing all that. And, like, that's not the person that Max remembers from 4 or 5 years ago.
But she is that person already in this.
Yeah, but, like, you see sort of where it got to the point maybe where she's not as shocked when Max tells her she can reverse time.
Yeah.
There's a little explanation of how, because there's a Twin Peaks influence to this series, and
I agree with that.
and there's a little bit of Laura Palmer to Chloe, and I can see where they're going with that. My main issue with this series is it's not by the original developers, and
It's not.
and
And
it's
Don't
not
Nod is working on
Vampire.
and took this one off. This is what Deck 9, I think, is the developer of this.
And then because of the strike, Ashley Birch couldn't voice Chloe. And she did consult on it, but I don't think the voice is...
Why was she allowed to consult but not do it?
Because
Should she not be allowed to work on it at all?
No, because actually doing the acting is the only thing that counts.
I mean, I will say this much. It's hard to tell that there's any voice actor, believe it or not.
I've seen the trailer, and I can definitely tell.
You can tell, but I think if people didn't... Most people don't know who Ashley Birch is not what I'm getting at. Like, we do. Like, I worked with her for years at Game Trailers because she did Hey Ash, What You Playing? And she would come in and do stuff with us when she was in LA. So
Right.
I'm kind of her friend in a lot of ways. So I know her voice really well. But I think people who just casually played the first game, I don't think they're even going to really notice that.
Sure, but I
voice is
mean,
all
as
different.
I'm a voice actor follower, and I'm also a big fan of hers as a voice. I never really watched Hey Ash, What You Playing? But I think I enjoyed her as Tiny. I was one of the few who enjoyed her as Tiny Tina in Borderlands 2, and I think she's great as Aloy, and she's great as Chloe, and I think she's a real find, really talent-wise.
Yeah.
And I just think, as much as I like this game, the first Life is Strange, I just think it's a shame they couldn't use it. And it's not their fault. It's not anyone's fault except, I guess, the union. But you gotta. I pretty much support what the strike is after there, but it's just a shame that it's starting to impact games that I otherwise would probably want to play.
Yeah.
I'll probably play it eventually. But buying it full price at launch is not for me, considering how many misgivings I have about it.
Yeah. Well, this game, we're seeing the very beginning of the first episode here, and it essentially starts with her turning into who she is in the original. This is kind of her first forays into, like, the underground, and this whole scene is she's going to this illegal punk rock show in the middle of nowhere in this barn. She's young. She shouldn't be there. Everyone else is adults. And one of the new mechanics, I guess you'd call it a mechanic, one of the new mechanics in the game is what you're seeing right now. So the conversation trees in this game, your goal is to basically shit talk. I mean, that's really what it is. You're trying to manipulate people using arguments and insults, essentially. And there's this new interface, and you'll probably see here in a second, that pops up on the screen. So each conversation is kind of broken up into sections and nodes with kind of big goals. There, you can see it there. And you can kind of look at the map of the conversation and kind of figure out, okay, you can see there's like 2 big points that ultimately you need to make to get what you want. And what she wants to do in this section of the game is get into the punk rock show. She has a fake ID, and the doorman's being hard with her, and you basically have to butter him up using trash talk, for lack of a better phrase, to get into the punk rock show. And that's really the big mechanic, because so far, the whole time manipulation thing isn't even there. And I think for a lot of people, that was kind of the big hook about Life is Strange that got people really into it, was the ability to kind of rewind time and try things again. Because like the first game, you make decisions in this game that alter what happens on down the road. In the first episode, I think I ended up having, because you make decisions all the time, but there are special decisions that you make where the game tells you, hey, this is a big one. Like, what you do here is going to alter things on down the road. And I think in the first episode, I got like 5 or 6 of those, maybe. So you kind of go through this whole scene where she's discovering herself and kind of getting involved in the underground, so to speak. And then it goes kind of back to the way the first game is. You go home, you wake up in your room, you go around your room, you check stuff out, mom is downstairs. And it is very interesting because you're not just learning Chloe's origins, you're learning the origins of everybody. So all the people in your school that you met, like you meet younger versions of them. And you kind of start to figure out kind of how and why people became who they ultimately became in the next game. And I think that's interesting. It manages to add some depth to the characters from the first one, which is pretty rare. Because you really didn't understand their motivations or where those characters came from in the first game. And here it sort of fills in that gap for you. But otherwise, I mean, I think the one thing I would say is that it feels more like a generic adventure game than the first one. And a lot of that is the time manipulation.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, is because you're kind of like, you're in the same house, and it's your mom, it's the same mom. And so there's a familiarity with everything in this game. Like, you meet the mom's boyfriend and how the whole relationship started, and how her mom, after her father was gone, looked for loser men to fill the void of loneliness that's in her life. And then you go into the relationship of Chloe, and I think people maybe who are in families that were raised by a single parent have all gone through this, where your parents get divorced, the one parent leaves, and you're living with just one of them. And then there's that awkward transition that you go through where you start to see your parent date other people. And if your parents were never divorced, it's really hard to deal with, because you're raised as, this is my mom, this is my dad, I know what their roles are, I know what my dad does, I know what my mom does, I know how they work together to help raise me. And then suddenly when your mom or your dad starts dating some person that you've never met in your life, and they're like suddenly at your house, and you're like, wait, who is this person? I don't know. It does a good job of kind of laying that out for people who have been through this situation in real life. I think it tackles kind of that topic pretty well. And like a lot of modern adventure games, you kind of have license to navigate that relationship how you want. You can be the peacemaker. You can be nice to your mom's boyfriend and kind of create that relationship and kindle it. And in a lot of ways, while you're playing it, you're like, okay, well, if I make friends with this guy, this could pay dividends on down the road when I need help with something. Or you can just be the punk rock rebel and reject the guy and kind of start off that whole relationship on the wrong foot, and then who knows what perils that, or maybe that eventually alerts your mom that he's a jerk and it saves her life or whatever. So these are all kinds of the things that are going through your mind while you're making decisions and playing through this game. And so I think on that level, it definitely succeeds. I guess if I had one big criticism of it, and I've seen some people say that the dialogue's awkward and stuff like that. I haven't really run into too much of that. I think the voice acting's been okay. But I think the problem is that this first episode does a really poor job of establishing any kind of real strife. Like, right at the end, it ends on kind of a cliffhanger, but it feels cheap, because it feels like they were like, hey, this first episode, nothing really happens. We need to make sure people come back for episode 2, and out of nowhere, this thing kind of happens that I'm not.
Which is interesting because the first game escalates it pretty fast.
It does, yeah. I think one, it's a new developer. And I think maybe they went a little bit overboard on saying, hey, this is our first time we're working on this franchise. We want to make sure we ingratiate the fans of this series into our take on it. And so I think there's probably a little bit too much of the, hey, here's the younger version of all your school friends. And, hey, here's this long, drawn-out conversation with mom. Remember her? Here's the house that you were in the last game. Remember this? Remember the bedroom? Remember the living room? Remember the fireplace? That type of stuff. I still have enjoyed it. It's hard for me to say that people should buy it, though. It's always hard with episodic games to tell people to buy them for one by one at $10 to $15 per episode, when you always know that, and there's one of the decisions, one of the first ones you make that affect what will happen later on down the road. But it's always hard to recommend, at least for me, for someone to buy these piecemeal and buy them episode by episode. And look, I think fans of this franchise, they are pretty dedicated, and I think they'll probably do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely tend to wait until all the episodes are out.
Because you get it cheaper.
You don't
have to deal with the cliffhanging BS.
Yeah, well, and also, look, Kentucky Route Zero taught me some things.
Yeah.
And still not finished.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess next year when it hits consoles.
That's supposedly what it is. Yeah, I think when it hits Switch.
Yeah.
It launches for Switch next year.
And that's when episode 5
And that's when
comes out.
the final episode comes out, yeah.
And that'll be a good one. I mean, that's a great game. But
How long has it been in development now?
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
It's been a long
For
time.
an episodic indie game.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It's definitely its own thing. It's magical realism doesn't happen overnight, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually wait, and especially because I bought Guardians of the Galaxy Telltale off the bat because we wanted to talk about it, and now there's still only up to 3. I mean, I think it's gonna be Christmas before it's all out.
Probably.
And I'm waiting to play the rest of it until then, and it's just I hate doing that.
Yeah.
Because in the end, I'm gonna play it all again anyway because I don't remember anything.
Yeah. That is one thing I would say. This game does not have a flash forward. To show you what happened in it would, normally it'd be a flashback, but in this it would be a flash forward. It doesn't really have that to give you kind of context with the characters. But I found that ended up not being a huge problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
The characters, that's the one thing the first series did really well, was establish these characters and really let you get to know them.
This is also kind of the questions. I don't really have any questions about Chloe's origins. I don't feel like the first game left anything
all that
out.
Yeah.
And it also it wasn't relevant. It's like the people that ask but
here's the thing, it's not her that makes an impact in this though.
Yeah.
It's the other kids at school, because in the first game these kids have already kind of found their established roles. There's the jock, there's the nerd, there's the crazy rich kid, there's the
bigger part of
there's the beautiful girl who gets whatever she wants.
Right.
And
Well, I
then
figure
there's the
part
punk
of it is this the girl who saved her. I assume is the girl. I can't remember her name anymore, but the girl who's vanished in the first game, and because you find out later that Chloe was friends with her, and I assume that this is mainly the story of their friendship.
Yeah.
Which I guess could be interesting, but at the same time, I don't know. Some people love Firewalk with Me, and some people hate it.
That's a good point,
the question of whether that story is necessary is always, they're about to do a TV series about the origin of Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is what?
Really?
Not everything needs
Why?
a goddamn origin story, people. I never wondered how Cruella de Vil became that.
Yeah.
They have a song about it. She's evil. That's it. That's all you need. Now, there is probably some ground to cover if you want to do this friendship between these two girls, but it's you're going to have to really sell me on why I need to know more than girl was friends with Chloe and is gone now.
Yeah. I did enjoy kind of the character building of her.
I just feel it feels a little bit like stalling for time until Don't Nod can get around to making Life is Strange 2.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, Don't Nod was not going to let them make the sequel. So.
Oh, yeah.
They had to figure out something, and they can't let the franchise just sit there.
You can't sit there for 4 years.
No, because that's a death knell in the games industry these days. So I get why it's done this way. What I've played so far, it's pretty much up to quality of Don't Nod's game.
I just feel
narratively, though, you're right. It doesn't have as much of a punch.
I just feel I'm going to end up getting this in a Humble Bundle in a year.
Yeah.
I'm
Don't
never...
we say that about every indie game, though?
Yeah, but normally I wouldn't have thought I'd say that about Life is Strange, but I just can't see a reason to prioritize this in terms of my interest in the world and the story. And I don't say that to impugn the writers of this. It's just it's just not something I ever asked for or wondered about,
Yeah.
And maybe I'll get around to it one day, but there's so much other stuff to play right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say on Sifted, this game has not been tracking especially well. So it appears that a lot of people agree with you, and they're just not particularly interested in sort of the origin story behind.
If it was still Ashley doing the voice, I might
Interesting.
Have gone forward.
Wow.
Because I think she's great, and I would have maybe done it to support her.
Yeah.
Because I think she's one of the best new voice act. She's not new necessarily,
yeah.
but she's rising to prominence and has been getting the bigger roles, and I think she's growing into it and doing it really well, and she's one of the best we got. So I would maybe want to do that to support her, but me.
She's also a good person, by the way.
So I hear.
Great.
I've never met her, but
she's great.
so I hear.
That whole team that worked on Hey Ash, all those people were amazing. And we actually ended up hiring one of the editors, a video editor, who worked on that project, ended up becoming one of our video editors at GT after a while. So, yeah. So, it's hard for me to recommend for you guys to buy this at full price. I did enjoy Episode 1 and had a good time with it, and enjoyed kind of getting more depth and backstory on the characters, but it's too steep. And it took me 2 hours and 30-some minutes to finish it. Mm-hmm. So I would say pass, but keep your eye on all the episodes as they come out, and we'll try to talk about a lot of them here on GameFace as they come out. But try to keep an eye on all those and keep track of it. That way, when inevitably the master version or whatever comes out, where they have all the episodes packed in, and you can get a little cheaper, you'll know whether you want to pull the trigger or not. So, right, let's move along. We're going to talk next about a beta that's been going on for the last couple weekends, Call of Duty World War II. Did you play it this past weekend when they added some of the stuff, or did you just play it the first weekend?
I played it the first weekend. I played all the different modes, but I don't know. I mean, I played. There
is boots on the ground.
Yep.
The first shot is the boots hitting the ground.
I played like Team Deathmatch for a couple of rounds, and I hated it.
I do not like this game, Matt.
I found it was way too circular. There was no way to know when everybody was going to come at you. There was nothing. There was no like tools to use against them. Everything. Your time to death is insanely low. Like, I just didn't have fun playing it.
I could talk.
It
for
felt weirdly
an hour
stiff,
about why I don't like this game.
And I was like sitting there thinking, because I was just, and like my girlfriend was like, watching some. I'm just like, I hate playing this, and I'm like, I think it's just because I suck at it. And I was like, I'm gonna go on the show, and Shane's gonna be like, this is like mechanically amazing, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm gonna be like, I hate it because I can't kill anybody because I suck. And it's just like, it just didn't feel good to play it.
Well, I'll say something good about the game before I rip into it. And the first thing I want to say good about it is that I love the war mode. I do like war mode. I did really enjoy that. It's really freaking cool. It's basically
I'm tired of the map. But, but I really liked it. That was the one thing that I played multiple times because I wanted to, and not just because I knew I had to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, the concept behind it, and you're right, you get sick of playing the same map over and over because it's the beta and it doesn't have the full suite there. But the actual concept of this mode, I love it.
It really works. And it actually reminds me of Onslaught. From Unreal Tournament.
Yeah.
Which I like having an objective and sort of a narrative flow to like a game like this.
And it's not overbearing either. It's not like you're sitting watching cutscenes, but you can see here like one team is building a bridge. Mm-hmm. There's like these mid-match objectives that you have to complete. And mostly it's kind of like a front-based mode where you have to push the front forward or you have to defend the front.
But it eliminates the problem I have with so many of the other modes is like the maps are they seem kind of small and very circular, and like there's just no way to kind of establish a perimeter or anything. Like there's always going to be somebody behind you, and it's just like, that's not how war works.
But that's one of my major issues with the entire multiplayer suite, the maps. Mm-hmm. I hate the freaking maps. It's like you said, they're circular. And you just, I got shot in the back.
And there's always a flow to these things, but it just feels so
Dude, I got spawn camped over and over in this game.
Even by Call of Duty standards, it seems pretty crazy.
Brutal, dude. People can drop in behind you. Right there, you just saw it. The guy just drops down like you never saw him. That's what happens to you in this game. You're getting shot constantly by people you never see. But the thing that didn't help either is that by the time I started, every single player I was playing against was max level. They were like at least level 25. And and that's the other part that drove me crazy about this game is they had a huge advantage. Like usually in Call of Duty, sure, you start, you don't have any attachments, you get a decent option of base weapons to use. You play a couple matches where you get your butt kicked. Eventually you get a couple upgrades pretty quickly and you can be competitive. Dude, in this game, the unlocks in this game are completely unbalanced. Everybody that I played against had those dragon fire shells. Literally one shot sets you on fire, you die. So guys just run around and just one shot everybody. And it's just, you just look around and everybody's on fire, burning on the ground. And I never even got them. And it was just a slaughter, dude. Like none of the matches were close. They were always blowouts.
I did get a flamethrower eventually because early on I was like doing the same. I was like, oh my god, the flamethrower! I keep getting not killed by these flamethrower guys. And finally, I got a flamethrower. I'm like, oh, let's see how lame this is. It was clearly. I figured it was something like the shotgun roll where like people figure it out. But no, the flamethrower is God.
Yeah,
like, it's just I was just mowing down the entire enemy team, and it's just like wow.
But I think the dragon.
I mean, it is a beta. They need to balance it. I mean, hopefully there's. But it's like.
You can't fix the map.
But how much? Yeah, but how much real change happens from beta?
Very little, generally. Very little, generally. The maps, you're not going to completely redesign the maps. The maps are done. And that, to me, is the biggest problem. It's like the maps have too many choke points, for one, because there's all these trenches. And so you run down this, like, cattle chute, and it just turns into this, like, who has the most people in the cattle chute wins the fight. You can't sit still, ever. Ever. Yeah. Not even for, like, 2 seconds. Like, there's no strategy to this at all. It's just run and try to sight people as quickly as possible and shoot. I was so frustrated playing this game that I just kept playing it because I knew I had to. I was not enjoying it at all. And then I start going back to, does the traversal stuff matter? The traversal, it doesn't bother me that much. Like, I do not miss flying and thrusting as much as I thought I was going to. And let me tell you, I really thought I was going to miss thrusting. But seriously, like, the traversal part of it doesn't bother me that much. It does play a little slow maybe for my taste. That doesn't bother me that much. The actual fact that the weapons and the kill streaks and stuff like that are a little more primitive, that doesn't bother me that much. Although I think they do take some liberties with some of the weapons and the kill streaks. I think there might be a little alt history going on here in some regards.
Oh, there's a lot of that, but it's fine.
That stuff didn't bother me either. It is really just the map design of the game.
Oh, the other thing, the SMGs gotta get toned down if they haven't already been. I haven't played it in the second
I only ever had
round
access to the grease gun or whatever.
Yeah, whatever the open, because I was having trouble with because I like rifles better in general, like in basically in real life too. I mean, I think they're more interesting. I like the precision. I usually like the Garand M1 and stuff, and I ended up like switching classes to the whatever the one that starts with this SMG, and all of a sudden, like, kill death ratio hit positive because the SMG is God.
Yeah.
In that game, I mean, it's so fast, and it doesn't seem. It's like playing Destiny with, like, you remember when, like, Destiny 1 would have the thing where it's like, oh, this gun type of gun is the best because when you even all the damage out in the Crucible, it hits so many times that you just die before you can do anything. Meanwhile, somebody with like the normal handgun has to shoot you 4 separate times.
Right.
So I felt like that was happening a little bit with the SMG in this game. So I used the SMG constantly, and I was doing great. But, like, it still wasn't really having any fun, except unless I played War.
I think what they've done with this game is because they took out a lot of the traversal stuff that sped up the speed of the game, I think they've created these small maps so that the game doesn't seem as slow and boring. And instead, what you get is just people constantly shooting you from behind and killing you, getting killed by people you never see. Honestly, the only time I did well in this game was when I camped. When I just sat someplace and just waited for people to run into view. If I actually moved around, I just got annihilated. And look, I'm not Jack Frags, who is playing right now. Thank you very much for the footage. So, for him, he probably loves it because it's just more people in front of him to murder. I mean, seriously, he probably thinks this is the best Call of Duty ever. But for me, someone who has average to above average skill at Call of Duty, it was just completely frustrating. It might have helped if I had started the beta when everybody else did, but that's not how it works. Yeah. I mean, people come into these games at all different points in time, and I just think it is just brutal for the beginner.
Certainly felt brutal.
Yeah,
because I haven't played a multiplayer in Call of Duty for any length of time, and probably, Modern Warfare 2 was probably the last one. It's been a long, long time. It's not the first multiplayer shooter I played in a long, but it's the first Call of Duty in a long time, and I felt completely outclassed at every turn. I did like the character creation lets you create any gender or race you want.
Yep.
I'm a big World War II history buff, and I do not care that is not historically accurate. I think that if you want to play as who you want to play with, you should be allowed to, because and it does create the odd situation of having black female Nazis, but, like, who cares?
I never thought about that.
Because there's a certain point.
I kind of like that, actually.
I was like, that's weird. Okay, but hey, like, if you want to be some character that looks like you or whatever, or doesn't look like whatever, I think that's great that they allow that. That's how it should be. Because if you're going to get in the historical accuracy thing, there was also no point at which the Nazis and the Allies ran in a circle around one particular bunker area until they all ran out of time, until 15 minutes were up, and then they decided who'd killed more people. Like, that's not how that worked either. Who can also forget the time that Rommel got shot and hid behind a wagon for 5 seconds until he stopped breathing hard and then got back out? Like, it's like, there is no accuracy, there's no historical anything in these games, so why not make it as inclusive as you can? I think that's a good move, and it's a good move. It's a surprising move to me from Activision, because Activision's usually such a conservative company, but, like, not conservative politically, but conservative in the sense of don't change anything, it works the way it is, and oh my god, don't make anything different, oh my god, it might not sell 7 million again.
Right. I think the other problem with this too is that because it's gone back to World War II, I think a lot of people who have checked out on Call of Duty for the last half decade or whatever are going to check back in thinking that, oh, okay, this is my speed, this is World War II, things are a little more slow and deliberate. Oh no. The people who have been playing Call of Duty all along are just going to wipe them out. Yeah. It is going to be a total bloodbath. I've been playing Call of Duty all this time, and they wipe me out. Like,
yeah, this feels real fast to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Lawbreakers fast, but it's fast.
yeah.
And the difference between this and like something like, say, Titanfall 2 is I don't feel like I have the variety of tools to sort of get myself up off the ground and away from everything.
No.
Whereas this is it's like you better aim straight.
It's
or
boots
you're
on the
gonna
ground.
die. Yeah.
It really is.
Now that said, I do think it looks pretty nice considering this a beta, and like I'm probably still in for single player.
Yeah, me too. Do you think the graphics look good in this?
I don't think they look terrible. Like there's a lot of texture, like low-res textures in places because it's a beta and they don't like have to download gigs and gigs of stuff.
I hope that's it.
No, that happens with betas a lot.
Because to me, this game is not a good-looking game. It's not ugly, although I have seen ugly parts of it.
Yeah, there are ugly parts, but the animation I like, and I feel like it's got a good feel to the animation.
It's fast. It runs.
It does run well,
pretty much.
But I'm in for the campaign, and I will probably play War. I don't think I would ever go back to the deathmatch stuff again. But
I mean, I'm going to play everything.
I
just want to see what they've changed.
Right,
after
but
the
at the very least, I want to see the other War maps.
Yeah,
like that was definitely the mode, the only mode I really enjoyed.
No, you're absolutely right. For me too. Capture the Flag was a little bit better. But there's all kinds of weird quirks with that stuff too, with like the way the waypoints work.
Yeah,
and
the Capture the Flag is sort of Capture the Flag is the way Capture the Flag always was with me, where I am not good enough to get the flag back to base, but I am good enough to stand to the side and shoot guys that don't see me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's really all Capture the Flag is for me. It's like, well, nobody's looking at me, so I'm just going to shoot you until you die.
What I liked about that and like Domination is that there actually was a little bit of downtime. There was actually maybe 2 seconds where you could actually think about strategy instead of just worrying about getting shot in the back. But in Team Deathmatch, it's like the way the spawns are, the spawns need completely tweaked. The other thing, too...
What is the top mode in modern Call of Duty these days?
I don't know.
Like,
it used to be Team Deathmatch as far as the most players. And then I think after that, like Domination, just capture and hold stuff. And then they always throw in the little things, and they're big for like a week, and then people don't care anymore. But here actually is my biggest complaint about this, Matt. The lag compensation was terrible during this beta. I think somebody actually from Sifted had jumped in and was playing with me.
Someone in the chat was saying they were playing with you.
Yeah, Killzone 310, I think his name was. I heard him like say my name one time, and then I recognized his name from the site. And dude, there was one part where I think it was a Capture the Flag map, and I was up at the flag. He comes around a corner and jumps down. I literally unloaded an entire clip into his head and neck, and then he pulled out his pistol and shot me twice and killed me. On his replay, I never even fired a bullet.
I've seen a lot.
That happened over and over. It wasn't like I only got 2 hit markers that were shown on his screen. I never even fired my gun.
Yeah, it was. The kill cams were very different from what had happened on my screen constantly. So it was
like bad though. Like I just do a little bit of it. Like I get 5 hit markers on my screen. You get 2 on yours.
Yeah, this was almost as bad as Battlefront was a couple of years. Because I think I told the story where I was playing with my friend and we were on Hoth and Darth Vader came at us. And we started to try to kill him before he got to us, and he basically picked me up, did the force grip on me, and my friend killed him, and then I got the credit for killing him somehow. Yeah. And he has a screenshot of like him shooting at Darth Vader, and I'm like hanging in midair, and it says my name, Matt killed Darth Vader, and he's like, I don't even know anymore. Like, he doesn't.
I mean, this was so bad, Matt. I actually shot him with a whole clip again in the head and neck. And had started my reload animation, and then he pulled out his pistol and shot me. And on his screen, I never even shot my gun. Yeah.
Well, that happened in the replays all the time when I was playing this. It was just like, oh, that's not what I did.
It's really bad.
And like that's the kind of thing that like really ends up dissuading me from even bothering with multiplayer shooters much, because like. And I don't know. I just don't know. Like I don't have enough experience to know. Like, is this just a normal thing, and people play this accepted as part of the game?
No,
because that just.
Here's the other thing too that I found is the longer I stayed in the same game, the better I got. Because as people dropped out, I jumped up in the server queue, and eventually I became the guy that was running the server. And so if I stuck in a game, instead of just jumping around and going from server to server, if I stuck into a game, as it went on, my kill counts, my KD started going up. Like. It's garbage. And here's the thing. It is beta. So I do want to say, before we kind of move on to the next topic here, it was a beta. And they put this beta out to test it. So, this isn't my final opinion on the game. It could improve usually games don't improve that much from beta to final version, but it could. And so I need to leave that door open just in case they manage to get everything up to speed. They're not going to redesign the maps. The maps are what they are. They can tweak spawns, which can make a huge difference. In that, the maps in conjunction with the spawns is what was giving me the biggest pause with this game. So, like you, I'm down with the campaign. I want to play a World War II campaign again. I think it'll be fun and interesting and all that. But the multiplayer, man, I am not liking it at all. So, we'll see. I mean, the game comes out now, what, in 6 weeks? Not even. Like 5 weeks. No, it's longer than that, actually.
It's
like 2 months still.
2 months.
Yeah. So they do have some time. Hopefully they're doing a lot of tweaking and getting a lot of feedback, because what I played so far, I was not a fan of. So, all right, let's move on. We're going to talk briefly about PAX, but only briefly, because PAX, no one cares. Unless you're there.
Unless you went there, yeah.
Unless you're there and having a blast, and it is probably the best convention you can go to in the United States every year as far as just having fun and meeting great people. As far as covering PAX, nobody cares. Like, all the stuff we put up for PAX and curated for PAX, no one cared. Like, view counts were like rock bottom. No one gave a crap. But probably the biggest story coming out of PAX was Nintendo's big push for indies on Switch. And Nintendo does this at PAX every year. It has this Nindies night that it does on the first day of the show, and it shows all its indie games. It did this for the Wii U. But this year was a concerted step up from what we're used to from Nintendo's indie presence at PAX. I mean, it showed like 25 new indie games for Switch. And usually you get like 4 or 5, and they showed 25.
Because it's all they got.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about.
Like, the B-list games don't exist anymore, so this is what you use to fill the schedule. And that's a valid strategy, I would say.
It is a valid strategy. And, I mean, one thing I would say is Nintendo, based upon this, isn't just content with just saying, okay, we have all the same indie games that Xbox and PlayStation have. Because it got some kind of an exclusive on Super Meat Boy Forever. It got timed exclusives on a bunch of other stuff. I think the last piece of Shovel Knight DLC is a timed exclusive on Switch. So Nintendo is not only just courting indies and doing a good job of it, it's also incentivizing indies to give Nintendo preferential treatment.
It feels like they're doing a much better job at this than Microsoft is.
Yes, without a doubt.
And Microsoft should be doing.
Well, I mean, look, I don't know about that, because Microsoft does have its ID at Xbox program that is kind of an incubator program for
It does, but I think one of the keys here is there's a lot of games here that they showed on this that I had never seen before.
How about this game? Did you see that shooter? Yeah. Where when you shoot people, if you shoot their leg, your leg grows bigger and their leg shrinks? It's freaking crazy. What's the name of it? I can't remember now.
I can't remember what it was called.
We'll see it again here coming up, though. But I think what happens with Sony and Microsoft is that it's just a given that every indie game is coming to their platforms. So they feel like they don't have to put effort into it. Nintendo is fighting an uphill battle. It needs these games to fill out its library. Microsoft and Sony can just count on it happening. Nintendo, that's not the case for Nintendo. And so I think what it's doing is incredibly smart. Now, if it's taking away from other things Nintendo should be doing, then it's not a good idea. But I don't think that's the case. No. I think this is a division that Nintendo set up inside the company, and its sole purpose is to go out and make sure that indies are coming, and apparently now to make sure indies are coming exclusively to Switch, or at least on a timed exclusive. So I think it's smart, because if you think about the Vita, Matt, and it's very easy to compare, or at least look at
if
Switch.
I have to.
Right. But it's very easy to look at Switch and then kind of look back through history of what happened with the Vita. And there are people who love the Vita and still love the Vita. And why did they love it? All the indies.
Yeah.
Being able to take indies on the road. And I think that's one thing that Nintendo has recognized. And I think that's an advantage of Nintendo being a Japanese company, was watching what the Vita did in Japan and seeing how it remained a viable platform much longer, and then looking at the Western market and saying, well, it wasn't really a viable platform after the first year in America, but the people who continued to use their Vitas, what were they using it for? It was to play these indie games on the go. And so I think this is an incredibly smart strategy.
Or their anime porn.
Right, or whatever. The multimedia properties.
Yeah, you got to find your niche. And,
which is something you can't do on Switch. So
yeah, Nintendo's probably not going to go for the anime porn thing.
No, I'd say definitely not.
It's those games. I mean, they're not porn, but they're like, they're
are they?
They don't go far enough to be porn, which is kind of they're kind of this, to bring up the Spice Channel for the second episode in a row.
Yeah.
That's
After
pretty
doing
much
100 episodes without ever mentioning it.
That's basically what they're doing on the Vita.
Yeah.
But this, there's a lot of stuff that looks good here. My concern as someone who owns a PC that can run all this stuff is how's it going to run? Because sometimes there was minor frame rate issues in the bonus stages in Sonic Mania, which feel like that shouldn't be a thing on modern hardware. No. But if Nintendo's supporting this stuff, hopefully they'll get stuff optimized well.
Well, if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, you're going to have to start buying micro SD cards to play all the features in some games. Like NBA 2K18, if you do not have a micro SD card, you cannot play all the modes in the game. Mm-hmm. And now it seems like every week there's LA Noire was just announced. It's being revived for VR, and it's coming to Switch. On the Switch, it's going to cost $10 more. It's funny.
And really, $40 is already too much for that game.
No, absolutely.
$50 is just
forget it.
That cartridge tax.
That's insane. It is insane. I just can't understand how Nintendo is so short-sighted to put so little storage in its system again after the Wii U. It is mind-boggling. Storage is so freaking cheap, dude. There's no reason for this at all. So look, while I think Nintendo is making the right moves with its indie stuff, because look, Nintendo figured out a long time ago it cannot produce enough quote-unquote AAA big-budget games to satisfy its platform. Mm-hmm. And on the Wii and the Wii U, it was way behind as far as indies were concerned. And I think it concentrated way too much and cared way too much if the indie games that were coming to its platforms were exclusive. I feel like it had transferred its first-party strategy over to the indie stuff coming to his console. And now that Nintendo's whatever, we'll take all the games everybody else is getting, maybe incentivize some of these developers to do a little something extra for our platform, or give us a timed exclusive on it. I think it's a really smart move. And the other part of it, too, is that Nintendo fans are generally core gamers. The kids, obviously, there's sort of that whole kids market that buys Nintendo stuff, or their parents buy it for them. But the people who really love Nintendo, they know games, and they know all the games that are coming out. They're into indie games. So I think this is a smart move by Nintendo, and it's a noticeable move. A lot of times when corporations change strategy, you can hardly even tell that they did it. With this, it was blatantly obvious. I've never seen Nintendo push indie games like this, ever. Mm-hmm. So it's good to see Nintendo at least learning in some ways from its past failures, even if it didn't with the initial hardware for Switch. And it still boggles my mind how little memory there is in Switch. I never get it. Especially if Nintendo was thinking all along, hey, this new strategy we have is more indies, which are all downloaded.
Yeah.
You don't ever buy box copies of indies unless they become smash hits, and then they put out a box version of it with all the DLC and whatnot. Typically, you're going to download this stuff. And while they're not huge downloads, they still take up space. So, my Switch is already full. I don't know how you're sitting on yours, but mine's already full. So
I got 2 games, so it's not a...
Well, you only need a couple more, and it's full.
Well, the other thing, I hope they improve their store.
Yeah.
Because the Switch store is pathetic right now. Because you can look at new releases, you can look at popular releases, and you can look at upcoming releases, and you cannot browse.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you want a game that's not on one of those 3 promoted categories, you have to search for it directly, and you can't just look through genres. And early on, I get that makes some sense because you don't have enough games to make up genre, fill out those categories. But as you move forward, especially with games like these, you're going to want someone to kind of browse and impulse buy, and they need to get on that. It's just the lack of movement on the online stuff on that system is really concerning. And it was, people were asking, it's they put LA Noire on there and not GTA 5. Why not GTA 5? That ran on 360 and PS3. I'm well, because Rockstar probably wants to wait until the frickin' online works properly, because that's where their money is made on GTA 5. Yeah. And so that's what they're... look, LA Noire was not my first or second or third or fourth pick for a remaster from Rockstar. Nope. But
but it was the quick and dirty easy one for them.
It's the offline game they can unload real fast and
not have to worry about the infrastructure.
Get something on there, learn the system, and maybe next time we'll get something else. That, look, I don't care about playing GTA 5 on Switch, but it makes sense. It's on everything else.
The big story is Rockstar on Nintendo platform, because it's been since the Wii Rockstar Table Tennis, I believe, was the last game Rockstar released for Nintendo.
Yeah, unless there was something like some permutation.
Was there like a Bully remat or
3DS
something?
or
I don't think there was.
Think so.
I don't think so. I think it was Rockstar's Table Tennis was the last one. So.
That sounds right.
But here, just to put it in perspective, we've been talking here for 10, 15 minutes about this. Mm-hmm. We've seen game after game after game. Like, there are a lot of indie games coming to Switch.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that looks good here.
I think that's a big deal, and it's something Nintendo hasn't had. I think it's going to soften the blow of the usual long sort of hiatus between first-party software for Nintendo consoles. So, we were kind of wondering what comes after Mario. Mm-hmm. And you got Smash and Pikmin and some things there, but these games should be able to fill the void nicely. It seems like the average consumer is becoming more welcoming of games like this as well.
Xenoblade did finally slip to next year. They admitted that.
Did it?
Did it?
I didn't hear that.
I thought I heard that.
I didn't hear that.
Did that not happen?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe that's just what I'm expecting.
It was at PAX, and I didn't see any reports like that. It got glowing.
I'm mixing it up with Ni no Kuni 2.
Yeah.
Ni no Kuni 2 slipped to January.
It did.
That's right.
Yeah, but glowing reports on Xenoblade Chronicles 2 out of PAX, by the way. Mm-hmm. So keep an eye on that one. Looks like they're saying it's still coming by the end of the year. I'll still be surprised if
I'll still believe that when it's in my hand,
yeah.
But, we're getting close enough that I'm starting to believe.
Yeah. Seriously, because at this point, you kind of have to say, it's not happening. But
once we cross into Q4, if they haven't said anything, I'm going to have to say,
no, it's coming then.
It is coming.
Because then they're liable to the stockholders.
Yeah, you're liable to the distributors.
Yeah, and distributors, yeah. So, breaking point for that's coming up real quick. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about the remaster of the first Yakuza Kiwami. Mm-hmm. Matt, you've been playing this game.
Yep. And it's Yakuza. I mean, it's really good. I mean, I haven't played the first game. The PS2 first two games are on PS2, and they're pretty primitive by modern standards. They were kind of primitive by then standards, frankly.
Yeah.
And so
this remaster is a little buggy here and there.
Yeah, it's all right. It's running off the same stuff that Yakuza 0 did, and it's also, by the way, so a lot of people are kind of thinking, oh, this is a perfect jumping on point. No. If you're going to get into Yakuza for the first time, play 0 first.
Yeah.
Then play this.
Yeah.
0's a prequel to this, and then there's a bunch of stuff they added to this that ties in with the new story elements of 0. So there's a bunch of stuff in this game that you're not going to pick up on properly if you don't know what happened.
See what's about the bugs? Like right there, that character model just like shook and shivered and.
No, that's intentional.
Really?
Yeah, that's like you're supposed to be surprised by him there.
Oh,
like that's Majima.
Interesting artistic choice there.
It's an anime standard thing. So that's Majima.
I'm actually
from the first game.
I'm especially proud of the pun for this topic.
Very good. So that's Majima, who was the other playable character in 0. He's kind of the standard crazy person in the series. He's a fan favorite. In the original game, when they dubbed the original game for a U.S. release, Mark Hamill did his voice. So one of the new features is called Majima Everywhere. And when you get out of prison, because Kazuma ends up going to prison for 10 years. So it starts in 1995, and his buddy kills one of the Yakuza bosses they work for, and he takes the heat and goes to prison for it, and comes out 10 years later in 2005, and everything's super weird. But and politically, everything's changed for like the local Yakuza stuff, and as with all these games, it's sort of like an infighting, political, maneuvering real estate scam in the end, and which is great. It's all done very dramatically, and it all works. It's great. But so when he comes out of jail, he has lost most of his fighting ability, even more so than in the original game.
Whereas when most people go to jail, they actually learn how to fight better.
Well, they actually addressed that, in that like no one wants to mess with him because he's so tough. So he got soft. He's out of shape. He's out of fighting shape, and so Majima, who is like a rival with him, decides like he's going to get him back into full fighting shape. So he's like, I'm going to be everywhere. So like at any point in this game, you can be ambushed by Majima and have to fight him. And he's disguised as cops. He pops out of sewers. He's disguised as schoolgirls. Like He'll pop up behind you. I mean, there's no... You can't possibly predict where he's going to be, and it's the only way to upgrade Kiryu's best fighting style, which is dragon style.
Yeah.
And so that's what that was like he was a cop, and suddenly Kazuma realized he was a cop, and that's why the camera did that.
Got it.
Maybe it's an acquired taste. I don't know. Because to me, that doesn't look weird at all. It's just like, oh yeah, that just means that he's surprised by something. I get it. You know, it's like
character models have got a huge upgrade.
Character models look great. I mean, it's all the Yakuza 0 engine. It's all using the fighting styles from Yakuza 0 as well, which was not part of the original game. It feels a lot better than the original game in terms of sort of like presenting the story, and obviously everything's voiced now. There's not as much text. I mean, there's stuff that's like text and voice, but it's all acted. It's
English?
Good. No English. You don't want it. I don't want English for these games.
Really?
Like I think no. They're so.
I mean,
Japanese.
they are set in Japan.
They're so Japanese. They're
they
set
should
in Japan.
Speak Japanese.
They should. It's all part of the deal. I mean,
yeah.
The dub had its charm back in the day, but they haven't done another dub since then, and I have never missed it.
Yeah.
So,
probably better that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great. There's not a whole lot to say about it if you've already played Yakuza, but it's like. It's great that this exists. It's great that they announced they're doing 2 as a Kiwami of 2.
Yeah.
Because 2 is narratively probably the least relevant to the overall story, but it is definitely the funniest game in the series. It plays with things the most, and there's some side quests in that game that are just completely out in crazy town, up to and including like busting up a
street gangsters.
A Yakuza. In 2, there's a whole quest that goes. Just this long, shaggy dog story that winds up with you walking in on a bunch of like hardcore gangsters all dressed as babies in diapers, and you have to fight them in like a.
I mean,
fake
this series is good for that. I mean, there's just lots of weird in these games.
So it'll be great. Hopefully they bring that. It's coming out in December in Japan. Hopefully they bring that over next year, probably around the same time, because Yakuza 6 gets its U.S. release, I think, in March.
Right.
And. The whole series will be right here and playable on modern consoles through PS3 and PS4, which is great.
It is.
And it's amazing to me that these games keep making it here, frankly. I mean, we've got 2 Yakuza games this year.
That's insane.
That's insane. Like, Sega does not give a shit. Like we
can't get Phantasy Star Online, too.
The site's still up.
I don't get it.
Like, the Western site's still up.
Who should buy this, Matt? What if somebody's like looking at maybe Agents of Mayhem or this game?
I'll buy this over Agents of Mayhem.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's not the same game remotely, but like this is
it's an open world action game.
Not really. I mean, this is an action RPG with a largish map of streets to run around in.
The combat in these games, though, is pretty.
It's
to me, it gets old after a while.
What was the last one you played? Because they've advanced it a lot in 5 and 0 in this.
No, Yakuza 2, I think, was the last one I played.
So they've revamped the combat system twice since you played one of these. I mean,
but in this one, is it revamped?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's the same combat as 0.
Gotcha. Okay.
With the stances and all the like that like upgrade screen you saw there, like that's 10 times more complex than the original games.
Yeah.
It's they're very different now in that regard. They don't feel. And the other thing I will say about this game is way harder than 0, because when he comes out of the joint, he is actually pretty terrible at fighting, and your life bar is short, and he's awkward, and it doesn't lock on quite the way he should. And as you add more moves and add more abilities, he becomes a much more competent fighter. But like there's, I think certainly early parts of 0 were not as hard as the early parts of this.
Okay.
So this is a harder thing. There's a lot more story-driven stuff early on in this, so you're railroaded a little bit more. Yakuza 0 sets you free sooner, which is another reason I would recommend that one first over this one. But if you like Yakuza 0, you should absolutely play this one, because I think the story is a little better in this one.
Is this full priced?
No, it's 30, I think.
30? That's pretty good. I mean, these games are long.
Oh, you're getting 60 to 100 hours.
Yeah, I never finished Yakuza 2 because it just, at a certain point, I thought the combat got really repetitive, and it felt like I had only got halfway there, and I was like 30-some hours into it, and I was just like, I got to move on.
Oh, I mean, you could, if you bought the whole series, you could spend a year.
Wow.
Easily. And play nothing else, I think.
Wow.
Like for the amount of time like an average person has to spend on games, I think you would take you about a year to get through all 6 of them.
Big Shenmue fans should buy this, right?
Yeah, Shenmue fans, and also just fans of like kind of crime stories, and if you're willing to have a little fun in it. I think it's worth playing, and if you like any kind of there's a whole genre of Yakuza films that exist, mainly the Battles Without Honor and Humanity series, which this takes a lot of inspiration from, and also if you just want something that is different, because there's nothing else like these games out there.
And I think if you want to, with a wink and a nod, obviously, if you want to learn a little bit about kind of Japanese culture, I think these games are kind of good for that too.
Right.
And I think Shenmue was really great for that as well. So
yeah, I mean, I think this one goes for broke in a larger
it's certainly
sense,
over the top,
yeah.
But it does kind of hint at what it's like to live there and kind of the things that are going on. I remember the first time I ever went to Japan, our fixer, who is basically someone you hire to go around with you, who translates and kind of shows you the city. The first thing he said was, if you're walking through here and you see someone in a suit, do not look them in the eye. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why? And he's like, well, they're Yakuza. And you just don't look at Yakuza. And I was like, okay. And even being in Japan, I don't know, I've been there, how many times I've been there? Well over a dozen at least. You don't really get it. Because I never saw one. I never saw someone who I thought was Yakuza. But just being warned of that, it kind of puts you on edge a little bit. And then when you play this game, you realize it's an exaggeration. It's a caricature of that. But it kind of explains the way things are set up, the way the society is set up, and why people are so fearful of the Yakuza.
Yeah. Well, we ran into a couple at one point, and they were very nice.
Yeah.
They're in the same bar, and there'd already been some drinking, and there ended up being some singing, and they sang along, and they waved goodbye when we left. It was
there you go.
They were older, though. They were
Yakuza,
more mellow.
they're not all bad guys.
They were just there trying to have a good time. It was all right.
Everyone likes to have fun drinking, I guess. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a remake that, in my opinion, did not turn out anywhere near as well as Yakuza Kiwami, and that is Secret of Mana. When it started leaking that they're remaking, well, we didn't even know if it was remade. I think the initial leak was Secret of Mana coming to new platforms, and I was like, I'm totally cool with that. Because it is one of my favorite retro RPGs of all time, called Final Fantasy Adventure in America when it was released. But no, Matt. Instead, we get this weird... I don't even know how to explain this game.
That is an art style choice, I will say that.
Dude, it's like it was made for the N64.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awful, dude. I cannot believe it. It's like they're taking a part of my childhood and just wiping their butt with it. I would have been far more happy with Secret of Mana, available across all platforms with high-res sprites.
Jeez, that guy's face.
Oh, all of it. The whole thing is just terrible, man. It's like a crime against humanity. And so when I first saw the debut trailer, I was like, oh, that doesn't look good. Look, the one dude has no nose. None of them have noses. And then I was like, all right, well, maybe once I see the gameplay, then I'll kind of come around on it. And then they showed the gameplay at PAX. And it's just a completely different game, I guess. It has the same plot, same characters. I'm assuming the same systems under the hood and the same number crunching that's going on. But as far as the presentation is concerned, it's awful. I don't understand it. It looks like a mobile game, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, Square does have a history of doing the mobile things and then just slapping them onto other platforms without... I mean, they did that with Final Fantasy VI, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Secret of Mana. Isn't that it's in the Super Nintendo Classic coming up, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. I think I'd rather.
I think we already failed on figuring out what games were in the Super Nintendo Classic, or at least I did. I know the one time we talked about it, I was like, I wish there was another Punch-Out in there, and it has Punch-Out.
Oh, Punch-Out's in there. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure this is on there, the original one of this, which is I'll probably just wait for that.
Yeah, it's tough. Were you a big fan of Secret of Mana back in the day?
I wouldn't say I was a big fan, but I did enjoy it.
It was one of my favorite turn-based RPGs back then. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason. But seeing it be desecrated like this is hard to watch. I think it comes out early next year on PS4, Xbox One. I don't know about Switch, though. I can't remember if it comes out on Switch. Mm. It looks like a Switch game, though, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it looks like it was built natively for the Switch, and then they're going to up-res it everywhere else. But Yeah, there's not that much to talk about with the game. I just wanted to bring it up and get it on everyone's radar in case they care. I was once a huge Secret of Mana fan, and I was really excited for it when I heard about it, and then I watched this, and it all went away. So
yeah, I'd heard about the remake, but I did not realize it looked like that.
That's it.
I don't know, saves me some money.
It does, that's for sure. And a lot of time, because that is no small game. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Mario. Mario, who we've always called, at least I can't tell you how many times across my career I've written the phrase portly plumber when talking about Mario, because when you write, you have to come up with different ways to say the same thing.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, being a good writer is someone who can do that well, who can come up with plenty of synonyms and different ways to describe something. And so portly plumber was one that I've fallen back on many times throughout the years. If you can do a Google search of my name and then any articles I've written, I'm sure portly plumber would come up at least a few hundred times. I cannot use that anymore, though, Matt.
No,
I can still use portly.
Yes.
But the plumber part...
Although even then, he's more or less a little roly.
Yeah, they have kind of slimmed him down over the years. But Nintendo now says that he is no longer a plumber. That
if he ever was.
If he ever was. But if I really think about it, like going back through the history of Mario, was he ever a plumber?
I don't know. I mean, originally he was a carpenter.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, he's in sewer pipes.
Yeah, well, originally he was a carpenter in Donkey Kong, and then the ads for the original Mario Brothers, the home version of Mario Brothers, were like a comic with a song in them, oddly enough, which is you can't sing in a comic, but okay. And it was Luigi. Luigi was a plumber. And he was having all these monsters pop up through the pipes, and he was freaking out about, Mario, where are you? And so Mario was supposed to go help his brother deal with this plumbing problem. So originally it sounds like Mario was a carpenter and Luigi was a plumber, although that may have been the origin of Luigi being an ineffectual idiot, like coward. That was probably the first time that ever happened. And then just everything got associated with pipes and stuff, and just calling them both plumbers seemed to be the natural progression of events. I mean, no one's stuck being a carpenter forever if they don't want to be, I guess.
Yeah.
But in the end, he's more like a, I don't know, like Mushroom Kingdom roving security guard, like sports maniac.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to Nintendo. It realized at a certain point that he's anything but a plumber. I mean, he does everything.
Yeah,
he's like an athlete.
Really more of a handyman.
Yeah, you're right. That's probably the best way to put it. A jack of all trades, maybe, is another way you could describe him. He's certainly not a plumber. And
he's not just a plumber, anyway.
Right. And so the sad part about all of this, Matt, is that certain people have decided that this is Nintendo making a political statement. That Nintendo's trying to... I don't know what they're thinking, but they're trying to basically say that Nintendo's trying to box out the working man.
Yeah, okay.
They don't want the working man to have that one mascot that stood for them and represented them in video games. What do you think about that?
Yeah, nothing says working man like a dude who plays endless numbers of high-end motorsports on the weekend and hangs out with royalty.
Yeah,
what?
He hangs out with a princess. Yeah, working man. But I just found it funny that it seems like in today's climate, people will try to politicize anything.
Oh yeah,
they tried to politicize Mario being a plumber.
But I love the idea that Nintendo would ever consider anything. I mean, has Nintendo thought that deeply about any Mario character?
No. If anything, Nintendo does everything it can to avoid that type of stuff.
Right.
If anything, Nintendo's thinking on this was well, we don't want to call him a plumber anymore because he needs to be for everyone.
Right.
Not that they're trying to exclude someone. It's not exclusatory.
Mario can be whatever you want him to be.
They want everybody to come in. Yeah, Mario's for everyone, not just the handyman or whatever. But maybe that's where the root of the problem is
he may not be a plumber, but he's a big fan of plumbers.
Right, yeah.
Keen interest in plumbing.
Yeah.
No doubt.
It is like the graphic says, plum dumb. The whole thing is just completely stupid. First of all, I think Nintendo coming out and saying he's not a plumber anymore is dumb. I think the reaction to it is
weird.
dumb.
What made them feel like that was necessary at this point?
Maybe there's something in Super Mario Odyssey. I mean, if anything, wasn't this really his opportunity to be a frickin' plumber? He's got New Donk City.
Yeah, he's finally somewhere there's plumbing.
He can go he can go around and unclog pipes all damn day long.
Maybe he doesn't do that, and they got ahead of that, so it explains why.
They're trying to get ahead of the no plumbing controversy before the hashtag starts. Hashtag no plumber. I don't get it. I don't get any of it. I don't get why Nintendo made a point to announce this. I don't get why people are up in arms over it. I don't get any of it. But I guess some people just need to generate outrage for some reason, Matt. I don't understand it. But
people take their Mario very seriously.
Apparently so.
Frankly, I thought there should have been more outrage over the fact that his name is Mario.
Yeah. The man with first and last names that are the same.
And Luigi's name is Luigi Mario. Which, like, that makes Luigi the normal one, people.
Right.
Like that.
Him and his death stare. Yep. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Destiny. It's our last normal topic of the week. Destiny 2, rather. I have not had a chance to play much of this. I played a lot of the beta, but I have not had a chance to play the final release of this because, again, I've been working on the Patreon like an idiot. So I've had very limited time to kind of sequester a way to play video games. Matt, how much have you poured into this game? Again, with a caveat for people who may have never watched this before, Matt is a huge Destiny fan of the first game. I don't know if I would say fan, but you played the living crap out of it.
I played about 200 hours of it.
Yeah.
I put a fair amount into 2. I think 2 is really good. Like it's
getting Game of the Year discussion out there.
I mean, it's the first game was a really solid like core gameplay mechanic, which is blowing heads off. I mean, the moment to moment.
Ultimately, yeah.
Moment to moment gameplay feels really good. Like, and the wrapper on it was everything else was just sort of mediocre. This one is a legitimately great game from top to bottom, I would say, with the exception of some of the microtransaction stuff and the fact that you can't reuse shaders. But overall, like what let's
talk about the shaders thing before you move on.
Yeah. So in the first game,
this has turned into a huge controversy over the last 2 days. The fact that shaders are now one-use consumables.
Yeah. So like the shaders used to be if you had a shader, you could use it as much as you wanted. And now, if you want to use a shader, it consumes it when you apply it to a piece of equipment. And you have to hope you get another one from another loot box, I guess. The main problem here, I think, is that, well, A, it's a downgrade from how they worked before in terms of player friendliness. And B...
consumer friendliness.
Like you can only part of the issue thing here is like you can apply shaders to individual pieces of armor now and weapons and stuff, and you kind of want to see how things go together, but you can't do that because to preview the shader, all it does is paint the whole character with that shader.
Right.
So you can't see what you look like with this shader just on your chest piece with like everything else, the original color or a different color. And so people are reluctant, and they're not like super rare. Like, a lot of people are saying that like I have like stacks of 3 of each of the ones I want to use, and it's fine, you can do that. But it's just one of those things where it's like, why take that step backwards?
What has been Bungie's response on this? Because I know that
I haven't seen anything yet.
I know one thing: it's dug its heels in and said it's not going to change it. Mm-hmm. Which Bungie typically has been pretty receptive to user feedback, but in this case...
Especially on Destiny, they did a lot of changes that the player base like basically screamed at them about in Destiny 1.
But in this case, I do know that it is digging in its heels and it's not willing to compromise with what the players are asking for.
For now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, is anyone going to stop playing it for that? Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just part of the game. I mean, they've also streamlined a bunch of other stuff to a degree that I think makes it easier to play. You don't need exotic shards anymore to upgrade stuff. You just need legendary. I mean, it's friendlier in a lot of other ways, but it's just like,
what about the leveling? Is there the whole light thing again?
Yeah, it's there, but it's like, it's just the number goes up as you equip more equipment.
Yeah.
Like there's only one stat for it. It's, it applies. It's the average of all your stuff, weapons and armor. And it's pretty simple. Everything has got like a light recommendation rating, and like you're fine. It's very simple. It's not like obtuse in the same way that like the first game, you had like the armor rating was not the same as the light rating. The light rating didn't become a thing until the end game.
Yep.
And it never really explained what that was. Now the light rating is that's just your armor rating.
Gotcha.
It's just your armor and damage rate. It's just like your general indicator of how powerful your character is.
So let's talk about what everyone cares about. At least what I care about, and what I think most people who are not huge fans of the first Destiny care about. Is it grindy?
Not so far.
No?
I mean, I'm not level 20 yet.
Right.
I'm like level 13, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and the leveling goes fast. Like, I know a couple of people that hit level 20 in the first day of playing.
Wow.
I mean, you can burn through it pretty quick if you want, especially if you want to play multiplayer. I think the strongest thing about it is, like, you know, where it used to be more of like you were in a hub area and then you went to the open world location and then you did your thing and you go back to the hub area to pick up your stuff and go back. So that's gone now.
Okay.
So when you go to like a hub area, it's more, when you go to the planet, it's more like an open world area, and there's like a guy you can talk to in the first area. You can fast travel to the main area, and then you do your little story thing, and then stuff starts to pop up. So there's like public events happen much more regularly than they did in the first game, and with a lot more warning. They appear
so you don't end up jumping into something you can't handle.
No, and also so like you're not stuck wandering around looking for one.
Right.
So like they pop up if you go to the map screen, it shows you where they
know where
are.
to go.
Yeah, you know exactly where they're
great.
going to go. And then you can go and there's a flag sitting there, and the countdown starts usually like 3 minutes before it happens, and you can activate the flag, and it'll put the countdown on your screen, so you know exactly when it's happening.
And does that send a beacon to all the other players so they can come?
Everybody
and join
knows it's there.
Okay, cool.
And but the thing is, like the map is just way denser now. Like there's little nooks and crannies to look in. There's little stairways, like buildings you can go in, things to poke your head in. There's always something there. There's always like monsters in there. There's always some kind of enemy. Usually, sometimes there's an elite enemy that pops up. And the thing is, like mostly the time when you kill anything that has a life bar that's a different color than normal red, they're going to drop loot. They're going to drop a chest. They're going to drop. You're constantly getting rewarded for things, which feels a lot, which feels a lot better. And the rewards are less scattered in the sense that almost all your main rewards for like the first area are this little disc that you then turn in for reputation at the guy who stands at the main cathedral when you're there. And like as you level that up and you get more rewards from that. And it's just like, it's much more straightforward. It's not like, okay, collect these and then collect the spin metal and then get the spin metal to do this and then you have to spend this much spin metal on. It's like that stuff's just not there anymore. It's like you can still collect little items, little like harvesting items from the area, but they still go back and get turned in for like redeemed for like reputation at the guy. It's not like they've gotten rid of a lot of that MMO clunkiness that made you feel like you were juggling 14 different inventory items and didn't know when or how you're going to use them and if you were ever even going to use them.
Right.
And if it just feels like your moment to moment like gameplay is still rewarding in the sense it still feels good to pop ahead, but it feels like the game doesn't expect that to be your only reward for killing things. Like you're always seeing stuff drop, you're always getting something for doing what you're doing. And then there's a ton of different story content you can do. It's like the adventures are sort of like side stuff, and then there's the main campaign story, which is usually a much more involved mission, whereas the adventure stuff tend to be more go to these places in the open world, and a triggered event will happen, and you'll get like a nice piece of loot for it. The first area you go to after Earth is on Titan, and it's essentially a abandoned ships in like an arcology kind of place, and like there's a lot of cool physics stuff they're doing that because the ships are moving.
Oh, okay.
And so there's like stuff rolling back and forth, and like so
there's gravity.
There is some gravity happening. There's some tricks they're using that they didn't use in the first game. It doesn't feel like just yet another just place with trees. Like the Titan place is a giant ship graveyard. So you're jumping from ship to ship, and it feels very different than any area that was in Destiny 1.
How about how MMO-y does it feel? Because the campaign section that I played in the beta, it didn't feel that way at all.
No.
I mean, there were moments where people kind of appeared and helped you with big battles, but it felt like a really good campaign for a really good first-person shooter. Does it stay that way throughout the entirety?
I would say the main campaign stuff stays that way.
Wow.
Yeah. Like it's
that's huge.
It definitely feels like it was made by the guys who made Halo.
Wow.
And the adventure stuff isn't too far. The adventure stuff, the kind of the MMO open world thing is a little more transparent. But the campaign stuff is very story driven and cutscene driven, and the other thing about it is like the very beginning we saw in the beta, like the Cabal basically steal the Traveler and shut out all the light and stuff. And one of the first things that happens after the part where the beta ends is you find a shard of the Traveler that lets you get your light back. So you are the only Guardian early in the game that has your powers.
Gotcha.
So you are the best, the badass. You are the Master Chief.
Yeah.
I mean, you are the master. You're running around and you're the only one who can do it. And and everybody's talking to you and talking about you, and like so that makes it feel a little more like that kind
empowering.
Yeah, it's
because that's one thing I would say about the first Destiny is you never felt like you were a super soldier.
Right.
You just felt like you were just like anybody else.
Right.
Which has its charms, obviously.
Yeah, and you are working to have that be the case again. You want to restore the Guardians as part of the.
So you're trying to help everybody else.
Trying to help.
So they're like play to make the game more boring.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the end game is like going to be, the thing where everybody's back up to power and you can do your thing again.
Yeah.
And it's funny that like there's characters returning from the first game whose names I could never remember that I remember now because they're done as characters better in this game.
Ah, interesting.
There's a lot more radio chatter. There's a lot more personality being put on display. Previously I think the only character I could really remember the name of was Cade 6 because it was Nathan Fillion.
Right.
And now I'm pretty aware of who everybody is and like that the guy who runs the Crucible actually had a name.
Right.
His name is Shax. Okay, I didn't know that.
I felt that way about Destiny in general. Like just all the words they use for everything. I could never remember any of it.
Yeah. And there's the villains are interesting because the big well,
they establish a real villain.
Yeah,
like
the big
right
Cabal guy is a good dude. Is an interesting villain, and what he's after is interesting. Like how and kind of the idea that these other alien races are jealous of us because we have the Traveler and the Traveler picked us.
Yeah,
and then he's got his like right hand man, the Consul, who is voiced by Frank Langella. Doing for most people our age will probably know as Skeletor from the live action He-Man movie, and he's on fire in this one. He's because the Consul is like the best lifelong friend of the big bad guy, and so like. And they're both like super familiar with each other. So instead of being like the scary bad Darth Vader guy who kills all his right hand men, like they're buddies. And like, and the Consul guy is like, I'm going to make you emperor. There's nothing you will want when we're done with this. And like, so they're conspiring to make their empire like warlike again, basically. And it's a fascinating. And I'm sitting there kind of like, oh, is Frank Langella going to betray this guy, or is this a real thing? And I don't know quite where they're going with that. And I think that's interesting because. While they could have been a really cartoony sort of like ha villain, like I'm not quite sure what they're after yet, besides just basic power. And I wonder how that's going to play out because it seems between every major campaign thing they do a little cutaway to the bad guys, and like there's it's much more narrative driven. It's fleshing the world out in a way that the first game just never even tried to do. And it's got me interested in what's happening beyond what my armor looks like.
So you're not getting the MMO stuff where it's like go here and kill 5 of this stuff because that's what the side quests were in the first game.
There's still some of that, but like put it this way: like the first time I had to go kill a bunch of guys and have them drop the little icon tetrahedron things to pick up 5 of those. I think I'd been playing for like 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's not as common as it was, and you're not just like going up get like standard useless little side quests and go. It's all very organic, kind of unfolding in the world as opposed to having to travel back and forth from places. You basically never need to go back to the hub if you don't want to.
Wow, that's great. Have you finished the campaign yet?
No.
No? How long have you been playing so far? Just to get an idea, at least how long it is.
Probably like 4 or 5 hours, but I'm not like burning through the campaign. I'm doing side stuff. I'm getting caught up in public missions.
That's how you play.
I spent half an hour playing soccer in the hub at one point, where there's like goals and like they drop a ball down, you can kick it back and forth. Like I'm just having fun running around doing stuff. Yeah. Like I don't feel pressured.
That's a good sign, though.
Yeah, I don't feel pressured to like just get this done because the only good thing in it is this campaign. Like I think it all works real well and it all gels better. And actually, the thing I'd say is it feels like a much more competent game than the first one was. I
mean, to me, it's the game that I thought the first one was going to be.
To a large degree, I think that's true.
I mean, and that's pretty typical. I mean, you start with a new IP. A lot of you get maybe half your ideas in there. Mm-hmm. The execution is maybe 70% of what you hope for. Sequel, you have that backbone to build on top of. It's just like fleshing something out instead of building it from the skeleton out. So it sounds amazing. Did you go back into the Crucible at all?
Yeah, I played some Crucible.
How does that feel for you after playing the beta?
It feels good.
Any different, or
I didn't play the Crucible in the beta.
Oh, okay.
But this feels fine. I'm not, standard Destiny Crucible action. I'm not getting totally destroyed. I'm not coming in first a lot. It's fast. It feels good. Everything, all my skills from the first game more or less translate over for the most part, and I haven't felt the frustration that was there in Call of Duty World War II beta. Yeah. So It's still not my preferred method of play, but it's something I will go back to when like special events happen. I think just like the Iron Banner stuff in the first game.
Well, I hope to get at least a little bit of a breather this weekend. I'm hoping to dedicate at least all day tomorrow. Definitely not Sunday. I will watch a little football on Sunday. But hopefully tomorrow I can put some serious time into this. And when I do, I will be sure to come back on GameFace next week and kind of share my take on it. But by all accounts, and I did play a ton of the beta. I played the Crucible a good bit. Played the campaign. Actually ended up playing it twice before they shut everything down. But I have not played the final game at all yet, so I'm really excited for it. It should make for a great weekend. Maybe I'll see some of you guys online, because I know at this point I'm friends with a few hundred people from Sifted. My friends list since Sifted launched has just like exploded. So hopefully you guys are all playing and we can jump on and play. If you haven't friended me on the various services yet, I am Dinfire across everything, and I will absolutely accept your friend request. So send it to me. Let's see. It's time for our trailer of the week. And it is Destiny 2's launch week. I thought it was only right that our trailer of the week was for Destiny 2, but it's not just any trailer. This trailer, to me, demonstrates why Japan is so much better than the West, at least when it comes to doing live-action trailers. Japan does the best live-action trailers. In fact, I'm working on a new episode of Geif right now, so I've been gathering stuff. And let me tell you, over the last couple of months, there's been some really awesome stuff coming out of Japan. Not the least of which is this trailer for Destiny 2. It's a live action. Actually, I'm not even going to ruin it. I'm not even going to explain it. I'm just going to let you watch it. Those of you guys who are used to watching GameFace, you know right now is the time to get your questions in a chat. And when we come back from the trailer of the week, we'll start answering them. So let it roll, Sam.
Protect community and never. Yeah, time to take back the light, take on the fight, harness the energy with all your might, shine for humanity and make sure it's bright, protect community and never lose sight, claim your name and your home and history, believe in the ability to achieve a victory, believe in the ability to achieve a victory, let's go! You have a good time, you have a good day, gotta have some fun, you don't need to, all you need is
Holy marketing budget.
Yeah,
Man.
That's also a pretty accurate portrayal of the hub.
It's a pretty accurate portrayal of what it's like to play Destiny, really. I mean,
I mean, there's a whole section for dance emotes in this one.
Yeah.
It's not. They went all in on the dance emotes, and they know that that's what everybody wants.
I mean, that should be a truncated version of that. Should be the TV spot in America.
Probably.
I mean, cut it down to 30 seconds or whatever. The best parts. That's what resonates with people who play Destiny, and that would also resonate with the more casual audience who maybe are like, "What is this Destiny thing?" I don't know. For whatever reason, Japan has the best of everything, including live-action commercials. So. Let's see. Let's get to some questions here. Mitchell is alive with Call of Duty World War II's competitive multiplayer looking to be a bit of a flop. What multiplayer game this year do you believe is likely to sweep the best multiplayer category this year?
Well, if it qualifies, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
If it doesn't qualify,
why wouldn't it qualify? Because it's not finished.
It's early access.
I don't know.
That's an ongoing debate I've seen.
I don't really think it is a debate, though. It's like it's a video game that you play. Like, look, if it's better than anything else, and it's not even done yet, how can you?
But then what do you give next?
How can you punish it?
Well, it's not punishing it. It's
for
not done yet. It's not done yet.
I don't see the logic in it.
The logic is that it's the same logic you have for giving Story a 0 in Madden for years. It'll be better when it's done, and then how do you reward it next year when it finally comes out, if it comes out?
Because it was already awarded the year before. You just don't give it the award again.
But now it's better.
Well, every game is always getting better. They patch games every game now.
That's exactly why you wait for it to hit 1.0. You judge it at 1.0.
Okay.
That's how it works.
I disagree with that. But
well, the rest of the entire industry is going that way, except for, it looks like, Giant Bomb. I think Giant Bomb's going to give it what they give it no matter what. I think they're like, they don't care.
I mean, I don't even know if I would give it best multiplayer, to be perfectly honest with you. I think the other issue that we're running into trying to judge...
I don't know if I'd give it to, but I think that's going to be what people default to if they decide that it qualifies.
Yeah.
I didn't think it even matter how good World War II's multiplayer was. I think that game has multiplayer wrapped up if people decide it's qualifying this year.
Maybe. I think the issue with answering this question right now is we are about to get all the really good multiplayer games. They generally all come out in Q4. All the big shooters come out. We're about to get Battlefront. I mean, that certainly could be a game that's going to be worthy of consideration for that.
Maybe.
I mean, as of right now, I mean, it's kind of my leading candidate, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, for that one, it really depends how well that Starfighter thing turns out.
I mean, I would even say Splatoon 2 is another one for me that's right up there, man. I mean, as far as fun that I've had playing multiplayer this year, that's right up there. I mean, it's different, even though there's been a game before. It's not like it's being imitated by anybody else, so it's still very different. And it's very incredibly polished. Nintendo did a great job updating the game from the first game to kind of sand down some of the rough edges. So, yeah, those are kind of the three that are kind of in my top three to keep an eye on right now. But, I mean, there's still so many more games that come out this year. So those are kind of my leading candidates.
Is there anything early in the year?
Multiplayer-wise, I mean, Splatoon obviously is the one that
Yeah, but I mean like more like Q1, Q2.
No, I mean, lots of good narrative single-player stuff in the early part of the year. Not a lot of great multiplayer. Yeah, that's what I would say. There's another good one from Mitch Was Alive, but we want to get to other people's questions. I see your question there about Shadow of War. Maybe somebody else will ask it, but... The Jstrom said, this is what our characters are doing when we're logged out. In reference to that Destiny 2 commercial. That's great. Headingham J, are either of you planning on playing the PC port of D2? And if so, which will you stick with, assuming friends aren't the issue?
I'm not planning on, because I already have the PS4 version.
Yeah.
And I pretty much, and that friends are the issue, because that's where everyone I know is playing on PS4 for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I have, I don't know, my friends list on Steam is probably 50, 60 people maybe.
For me, it was just, I'm not waiting a month.
I just don't have time to start a game on one platform, build my character up, and then just trash it and start all over again. I would like to, because obviously the PC version is going to be the superior version. It looks amazing on PC. But it's like, it's all about...
It's pretty good on Pro.
Yeah. I mean, it looks pretty good everywhere, man. It's a damn good-looking game, without a doubt. And I mean, maybe that's another part of it that won't push me to go to PC, is that it looks so good on consoles already. I mean, it looks plenty good enough for me on consoles. And, games like that are all about community and finding people that you play with regularly. And once you kind of start a game and kind of create that community from your friends list and from coworkers or whatever, you just kind of tend to stick with it. So yeah, I don't see myself like double dipping, and I maybe give the PC version a spin to check it out. But I'm also guessing I would probably be a lot worse at the Crucible on the PC version. I just get my ass handed to me. So I would not look forward to playing multiplayer with people who play with the mouse and keyboard all the time, whereas I spend the majority of my time playing games with sticks and buttons. So, J. Reed Vic 7 with FIFA, Madden, 2K, absorbing cinematic choice-driven story, Injustice becoming Borderlands. Will everything become a hybrid? What does that mean for more obscure games in those genres? I've been saying it on GameFace for a long time. It's all becoming a melting pot where everything is just going to become an action RPG or some permutation or combination of an RPG. So yeah, I think eventually, yeah. I mean, I still think we're probably 10 years away from that happening.
But it's just that move to incorporate those elements because it gives you a more of a feeling of ownership over the character and will keep you playing longer.
Yeah,
so.
It makes sense. But I also think that we'll go through that stage where everything is kind of melting together and blending together, and you're going to get these factions of people who rebel against it. And they're going to be like, I just want to play an RPG, or I just want to play a sports game. Because you always have those people that just organically want to go against the grain and against the tide. And so I don't think like these sort of discrete genres are going to go away. I think you're always going to have a faction of people who will support those and kind of prefer them. But I think if you're talking about the mass audience, the vast majority, I think eventually it's all going to be a melting pot of RPG / whatever. It just makes too much sense. I pretty much like RPG elements in almost everything I play. And I realize everyone's not like me, but that's my personal preference. Let's see. Lots of congratulations and thanks on the site and the Patreon. Thank you very much, everybody. Dark Force 256. How happy are you that the Patriots lost yesterday? Because I am very, very happy. For those of you who are new, and there's going to be a lot of you because our shows are going up on YouTube after a 3-day period for our patrons. Sam, our TriCaster operator, is a big Patriots fan. And I'm a big Steelers fan. And Matt doesn't give a crap. Nope. So, Sam, actually, I think he took it pretty good. I think he's a knowledgeable enough football fan to know that was just one game. Yeah, it is. That's why you play 16 games instead of one.
Madden curse is in play.
Yeah.
Telling you right now.
Yeah. I will admit, it did feel kind of good to see that stadium empty for the last 8 minutes of the game.
Tom Brady's hair is going to be white by the end of the season. I'm putting it down.
I kid.
It was midnight.
Yeah, there it is. There's the excuse. It was midnight. Everyone had to go home. I bet you if they won that game, if they had won the game, they'd have brought all those Lombardis back out on the field again.
They'll be back out.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for asking that question so we could have some fun with Sam. Let's see. Here's one from the Jastrum. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Sifted Games, I'm glad you started a Patreon. I just became a patron, and I'm happy to support. I love what you guys do. Thank you. Thank you very much, man. I'm wondering how many people watch our GameFace stream and never became a subscriber to Sifted. If you're one of those people watching right now who's been watching our stream, we launched a Patreon. And if you want to just contribute to us to kind of pitch in for literally the 100 episodes we've done on Twitch that you've enjoyed, you can just give us $1 and you get community stuff. The tiers and the goals and everything, they scale up really nicely. You can give as little as $1, or you can give
a section looks like a fireworks display now.
Yeah, it does.
Colors everywhere.
Yeah. You can give as little as $1, or you can give a lot, and you can get into Pactor's ultra-exclusive E3 party this year at E3. So go check it out. You can see the URL at the bottom of the screen there. But thank you very much. And if you are indeed somebody who had just watched us on the stream and decided to kick in, we really appreciate it, man. Thank you. Drunken Elvis, will you guys switch to Xbox when they become the better versions of new releases, or stick with PS4? Great question.
Well, to do that, I'd have to have an Xbox One X.
Yeah.
And, maybe eventually if I ever end up with one. The thing about,
if I own one,
yeah,
everything
probably.
but multiplayer stuff, I'd probably stick it with PS4.
But, in a situation like Assassin's Creed Origins, it's I think I'll probably get the PS4 version of that, anyway.
Yeah.
Because I do have a PC that could run it, but I don't trust Ubisoft PC ports in the first month or two.
Yeah.
So
I don't trust a lot of PC ports, to be honest. I mean, most publishers are pretty guilty.
You're just constantly rolling the dice, and we've seen
Yeah.
that multiple times in the last year or
For
two.
sure.
So in the end, I will probably default to PS4 for the remainder of this year. But if at some point in the next several 8-9 months, I pick up an Xbox One X after the rush subsides, if impressions are good enough, I would probably switch to non-multiplayer stuff being Xbox by default, which will be weird because I'm so used to the DualShock 4 now.
Yeah,
which
I mean,
never
I'm all
thought
about
I'd
the
say.
best experience. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what badge is on the front of the hardware. I
don't
really
care where it is. It's just a matter of will I end up
Do I
getting
have it?
one? Yeah.
And is there community supported there for me to play it with other people? If not, I'll stick with PS4.
Right.
So, from Bachby, a longtime supporter, man, what's up? I will support you guys to the end, even when my heart is not in gaming anymore. Ever had times where you can play good games and feel like it's a chore? And if so, what did you do to make the feeling go away? Great question.
I think I usually just play something else. And
Yeah.
usually an older thing. I tend to go back to the old retro stuff if I need to be reminded.
What I do, and I think the last time I felt that way was when I was laid off from GameSpot. When CNET laid off half of its company in one day. And all the new hires who had been there for the last year and a half were just let go. And I had moved all the way from Philadelphia all the way to California, and I had worked there a year and a half, and they're just you're laid off with half of the company. And I was just what? I just moved my whole life out here. And I was devastated. And I went home and just played a JRPG. Mm-hmm. Something that I could just dive into and just completely lose myself for a week, essentially. I didn't feel like playing any of the other genres that I usually liked. Back then, I was really into 3D platformers and kind of more whimsy stuff, and it just felt not right for me to play that stuff. And I think that's what I do. I tend to dive into a really deep game with a lot of lore, maybe. Something that just completely kind of whisks me away and takes over. And because I think when I get burned out on games, it's because I'm thinking too much about it, and I'm not just kind of just getting into the groove of playing games and just kind of letting something that I love just take over. But that does not happen to me very often, to be perfectly honest with you. In my life, I can point out instances where I kind of soured on games for a little bit. I generally just I never get bored of games. I never lose my passion for it. I don't know. It's just something.
Yeah, I think in general, for the most part, I'd say they get better and better.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. That's the advantage, is the games keep getting better. So I think if they stayed the same all that time, sure, I would probably burn out. But it's
And every once in a while, it is funny though, if I do feel that way, I also will usually go back to JRPGs, and something in the Suikoden series will usually perk me right up.
Yeah. But, Matt makes the best point. It's that because games just keep getting better, it's I do feel anytime I'm getting into a lull where I feel like everything's the same, some game comes along that just kind of flips the script and does something completely different. And then you start getting all the other developers kind of iterating on that idea and expanding it and making it better. So
just even this year, I'd played so many open world action games, and you kind of felt like that was sort of sucked that one dry a little bit. Then we got Zelda and Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's just no, I still love this. It's just you need to turn that lens a couple clicks and get something new in there.
And I think really what the lens is that the gameplay and the combat in these games now are as good as just regular action games. And that was always kind of deficiency for me with open world action RPGs was the combat was always kind of a means to an end.
Well, look how long we tolerated Rockstar.
Right.
Rockstar's gunplay. It was just not...
Or just its weird traversal. And for the first how many entries, you couldn't even climb a frickin' fence. It's... And that's what it is. It's the progression and the advancement of the industry, I think, that keeps us engaged. And we're lucky, too, because we have access to all the games, and a lot of people don't. They have to be really careful with how they spend their money. But that's what we're here for. We're here for to help you guys figure out how to spend your cash so you can keep your fire and your spirit for video games. All right. We'll ask answer a couple more here. Someone asking us about tax havens. I don't know if we're the right people.
The Super Bunny Hop thing. I haven't watched that yet.
How about you save that one for the next round of Pact or Factor? Next time we put up a call for questions, make sure you ask that one. I don't think we're qualified to answer it, to be honest. We'd just be babbling and not giving you any real information. So,
Pactor will sound much more authoritative when he babbles.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You'll probably trust him a lot more than you'll trust us. W. Matthew, what do you think of the South Park game stuff revealed this week?
Oh, the difficulty thing?
Not well, that and just the content.
I must not have seen that then.
Man, it's not pulling any punches, man. That game is rough. It is.
Well, the first one was too. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think
they got to top themselves.
I think that's exactly what's going on here. I think that they are absolutely trying to one up the last game. I mean, there's some stuff in the gameplay that they put out this past week. Go watch it, by the way. It's amazing. But holy cow, even me, and it takes a lot to offend me, a lot. And there was some stuff in there. I wasn't offended. I was just like, damn, oh my God, I can't believe they went there. But I think you're right. I think he's asking about the slider, the difficulty slider, that the more it goes to difficult, the darker the skin tone gets on your character. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean,
for all the criticism back and forth I would have about South Park and how they approach things and how people take that show, like, they're real good at kind of just like taking some social truisms people have trouble talking about or admitting and just throwing them right there on the screen.
Yeah.
And that's a great example of it.
I think it's brilliant. I love it. I think it makes its point without beating you over the head with it. And I think some people may not even get it.
Oh, I'm sure. Wait, why is that? Oh, it must be a bug. You know,
No,
some people are not going to understand
I guess I'll
what
just put
that's
it
saying.
on easy.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's just another way that it just shows how those guys are kind of thinking on another level and how they're willing to challenge societal norms and things like that and just do things differently. Like we were saying just 5 minutes ago about, you know, how you get into these lulls where it feels like everything's the same. No one's ever done a difficulty setting in a game like that before.
I mean,
May never be done again, but I love it. I think it was really, really great.
It does start to make you wonder what they could possibly do for a third.
Yeah.
Like,
You're absolutely right.
Like, but, you know.
They're saying that, as Shelburne is saying, it doesn't actually adjust the difficulty. It's just a goof. Yep. So, all right, party people. That's it for GameFace episode 101 on Sifted Games. Before we go, with our Patreon, we have been fortunate enough to get our first sponsor. And we're going to read our sponsorship copy right now. We'd like to welcome you to our first sponsor, extraturns.com. Are you tired of paying 10 to 15% commission or more selling your used games online? What if you could sell your used games commission-free? At Extra Turns, you can. That's right. Extraturns.com is a brand new marketplace being built from the ground up to sell your games, collectibles, electronics, and memorabilia. They won't charge you a thing to sell or exchange your used games, and they'll always beat their competitors in every other category. Visit extraturns.com to sign up for the site's launch. It's not even live yet. Get in early and get your first 5 listings free. Like and share Extra Turns on Facebook and Twitter, and you're entered to win an SNES Classic this holiday season. Don't wait. Sign up for Extra Turns today and join a brand new community of dedicated gamers just like you. There you go. An eBay that won't rip you off.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like anyway. Thank you very much for the sponsorship. First sponsors we've ever had on the show. We appreciate it very much. Let's see. What updates do I have? Patreon's going on. We're doing okay. We're almost halfway to our goal in a week. We got 3 or 4 more weeks here to get it up there. As I said earlier, our shows are now going out onto YouTube. So I hope if you're discovering GameFace on YouTube for the first time, you enjoyed it. And I hope that you'll consider contributing to our Patreon. Again, lots of different tiers and rewards for pretty much any budget. So, any plans for the weekend, Matt?
Probably some more Destiny.
Yeah, that's probably what I'll be doing.
Yeah.
Sam's going to be crying his Patriots tears.
I don't know what to do anymore on Sunday now that Twin Peaks is over. So.
Well, there's football. Perfect timing, right? Because you know there's a lot of lap over.
I don't know what to do.
You know there's a lot of lap over between the Twin Peaks audience and the NFL fan.
Yeah. Some damn good kickoffing.
Yeah. Well, once again, I want to say hello to all the folks on YouTube who have not been able to watch us all this time. This is one of the big changes that Patreon is bringing for us. I know there's lots of fans of Invisible Walls who are maybe watching this show for the first time. Good to see you again, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.